All right, we are welcome. We are live. Welcome. Sorry. This is the Law of One. This is Ryan Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Sorry, I was distracted. Shut this out. All right, Friday night, the Law of One. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, I was distracted trying to get that to be shared out at the same time as I was trying to go live. So welcome, everybody. Well, Denise, welcome. Share this out. Let me pull down that banner, that overlay there, right? How about I pull that down so we're not staring at that overlay. There we go. Law of One. Put myself up into full screen for right now until we get going here. So we're going to rewind and start the second part of session 84. So we're on question 12, I think. 12 or 13. We'll start there and go forward. And we are still using the, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. We are still using, I got to go back to the chat, the Matthew Moose videos for the Law of One. We're going to continue doing that all the way through. I should have went ahead and did that from the beginning of this session. Again, Reese, welcome. So yeah, I should have just stuck with that and did that, but I did not, right until finally I got tired of trying to do the editing and went back to that and realized how much that some of us missed the other voice. And I liked the whole visual anyway, where you guys can read it as well as see it. So share this out, get everybody in here, tag them where they're at. I've shared it out in a couple of places. Running just a tad late for a second or two there. Got to make sure my phone is on mute here. And it is. Yes. I don't want it. Otherwise, you'll hear, you guys will probably hear it from the screen anyway when I get notifications. Okay. So, Brooke, welcome. It's like I said, share this out. Denise, welcome. I already said hi to Denise, didn't I? Sorry about that. So, yeah, share this out. It's Friday night. Time for the Law of One. So we are on session 84. Question, I think it's 12 because the video is the second video to that session. I think it's question 12. We'll see when we go ahead and start it, right? So I'm talking to people in the last couple of days and hearing that some people are still having emotional issues going on. We did just hit the solstice. Yesterday was the solstice. So we are now, it was the first official day of spring. So we did hit that. And for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the first official day of autumn. You guys are moving into winter down there. So that everything that was going on up until now in this first part of the year with the super moons, we just had a blood moon. We just went through the Virgo blood moon. And that's going to start waning a little bit as we move a little bit further. Once we hit April, you'll see that things will change a little bit. So people that are still having a little bit of an emotional issues going on, hold on, because it should be less than it was last month and less than it was in January. And so it really hit at the end of January into February and then March. So it's been kind of rough. Things are, we're in 2025. It's a masculine year. So it's a Kundalini year, not a Kunda buffer year. So it's masculine, so it's going to be more strife and aggressive anyways, just because it is just when you go back and forth, even in odd years, when you hit an odd year, it's going to be masculine. So you're going to have that a little bit of strife. But, that's why COVID was the way it was during COVID, because it went back and forth as well. First part of COVID was 2019. And then when COVID really hit was 2020, and it was a feminine year. So it wasn't as is crazy. But then the second year of COVID, 2021, was a lot more aggressive and a lot more abrasive and a little freaky for everyone. So it wasn't until 2022 that things started to settle down a little bit, right? Joanne, welcome. So like I said, share this out. I'll go ahead and do a sound check. Penny, welcome. If you guys don't say hi in the chat, I just see numbers. I don't know who else here. So if you show up in the audience, say hello. That way I know that you guys are there and I can see who it is that's here. And then I'll say hi. So let me go ahead and do a sound check here, and we'll just get started with the law of one and start moving forward. So let me know if you guys can hear it okay. Let me pull this up in the full screen that way, and we'll go ahead and do a sound check and see how you guys are and make sure that you can hear it okay, and we'll just get started, okay?
Question 84.13. Questioner, would you please do that? Answer, I am Ra. The energy transfer occurs in one releasing of the potential difference. This does not leap between green and green energy centers but is the sharing of the energies of each from red ray upwards. In this context, it may be seen to be at its most efficient when both entities have orgasm simultaneously. However, it functions as transfer if either has the orgasm, and indeed in the case of the physically expressed love between a mated pair which does not have the conclusion you call orgasm, there is, nonetheless, a considerable amount of energy transferred due to the potential difference which has been raised as long as both entities are aware of this potential and release its strength to each other by desire of the will in a mental or mind complex dedication. You may see this practice as being used to generate energy transfers in some of your practices of what you may call other than Christian religious distortion systems of the law of one. Question 84.14. Questioner, could you give me an example?
Yeah, thank you for that, guys. Thank you, Penny, and thank you, Brooke, for letting me know that the sound was good, right? So welcome, Bo. I didn't say hi to Bo. Who else is here? Joanne, welcome. So hello out there. Share this out. Cassie, thank you for sharing that out. Tag some of those people, get them in here, right? Good deal, good call. All right, let me go back here and we'll continue, okay?
Example of that last statement. Answer, I am Ra. We preface this example with the reminder that each system is quite distorted and its teachings always half lost. However, one such system is that called the Tantric Yoga. Question 84.15. Questioner, considering individual A and individual B, if individual A experiences the orgasm is the energy, then, transferred to individual B in a greater amount? Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. Your query is incomplete. Please restate. Question 84.16. Questioner, I am trying to determine whether the direction of energy transfer is a function of orgasm. Which entity gets the transferred energy? I know it's a dumb question, but I want to be sure that I have it cleared up. Answer, I am Ra. If both entities are well polarized and vibrating in green ray love, any orgasm shall offer equal energy to both. Question 84.17. Questioner, I see.
Right. No, I agree. Shelley said, nice voice. Yeah. I used this, Shelley, in the first run through the law of one. I used these videos exclusively. And the reason that I stopped for the second run through was because they actually monetized their page, and the commercials would come on. So back 2 years ago when I did that, the commercials had to run a lot longer before I could skip them, and they were in the middle of the stuff as well. Now they're just at the beginning of the videos, and not every one. And so I just let it go for that 5 seconds, and then I skip it now. So I decided, because I was editing on another program, but it didn't have the visual that you see on the screen, and I really like this one. And Matthew Moose has been very kind to me over the years, going back to 2017 when I first started doing the Law of One, that I decided to, instead of editing what I was doing and then not having a visual, I decided to go ahead and go back to their video, and if a commercial comes on, just leave it on long enough to skip. This commercial still legally there for people to hear and see. And I missed this voice too. I like this voice better than the American one that I was using before. Having an English voice seems to, for whatever reason, I don't know the name of the person's voice who used this. I was using Mark, which was an American voiceover on my computer, the program that I have. And I like this version because you can see the words on your screen. So if you're listening on MP3 broadcast, you can't see that, I think that this accent, maybe because I'm European, this accent, I mean, I was born in America, but I'm European, seems to flow better in the mind than the American accent does. So I thought about using a woman's accent, but decided to go back to this one because they already had it put together. I like the format. I like the screen where you can see the words so you can read along with it, because some people do better with visuals than just sound. I know I do. When I first read The Law of One, I did it this way on this site on YouTube, where I looked at it, read the screen at the same time as hearing the voice. But I can also just read a book. But it was easier for me, instead of buying all the books, to just do this platform to read The Law of One. And then I went back, and because what I used when I was doing it up until 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was using the transcripts from the lawof1.info from the lawof1.info from LL Research's group, their website. I was using the transcripts of the conversation that Carla had being recorded, and that Dawn and Carla had recorded from the seances, from the sessions. So I was using the actual transcript from that. This is from the books, I believe, so there is a little bit of editing, but it's very minimal. I used to go through the first run through, I would have monitors up, and I would literally tell you where the discrepancies were from the transcript. So we would pause, and then I would talk about the transcript and tell you what it said in the transcript and show that screen, and then go back in so that people knew that we weren't taking we were not taking any liberties with the Law of One. That Matthew Moves did this from the book, so it's exactly what they published. So this time I'm not running through that. I'm just allowing it to play and let people figure that out. But if anybody ever asked any questions, I would be talking about that. You know what I mean? Chandra, welcome, and thank you for tagging people. Let's get them in here. All right, so let me go ahead and hit play, and we'll continue with this line of questioning. Session 84. I believe we're on question 16 now, right?
Before the veil, can you describe any other physical difference that we haven't talked about yet with respect to the
question 17? Okay.
Sexual energy transfers or relationships or anything prior to veiling? Answer: I am Ra. Perhaps the most critical difference of the veiling, before and after, was that before the mind, body, and spirit were veiled, entities were aware that each energy transfer and, indeed, very nearly all that proceeds from any intercourse, social or sexual, between two entities has its character and substance in time-space rather than space-time. The energies transferred during the sexual activity are not, properly speaking, of space-time. There is a great component of what you may call a metaphysical energy transferred. Indeed, the body complex as a whole is greatly misunderstood due to the post-veiling assumption that the physical manifestation called the body is subject only to physical stimuli. This is emphatically not so.
Right. So, yeah, you have to realize that. Penny, welcome. Did I say welcome to you before? I don't think I did. Welcome. So, yeah. And then Chandra was tagging you. So you have to realize that people were aware of the sexual right energy that exists in the human genome, especially when both male and female participant actually are aware of it and are utilizing that for different things. It has been a part of almost every religion on the face of the earth and spiritual practice since the dawn of time. Those of us who are theologians are aware of that, and it's only been in the modern era that officially that has been removed from the canon. But it doesn't mean that it's not still in it. It just means that it's gone out of style, and now it's done behind the scenes where people don't realize that it's happening. So you hear of that, like in Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code, and in the movie, they talk about that when the character who played Jacques Saulnier's granddaughter, came home from college early, and then looked in the window one night and saw that her grandfather was in the throes of what looked like a ritualistic ritual happening that was a sexual rite ritual. And it freaked her out, and she ran away and didn't talk to her grandfather for a long time instead of figuring out what was going on. She just assumed that he was in some sort of evil satanic cult, because that's what they try to teach you, is that the only people who do some sort of ritual where they might be wearing a gown or a hood or something, or and doing a sexual rite, are in fact the devil worshippers. And it's actually not true. Every religion had that. The further back you go, so if you go back to the time of Jesus 2,000 years ago, that was actually normal in almost every religion. It's just that it's been changed since then and taken out of the Bibles, so it's been edited out of all of the religions so that you don't know that it's there. There's a reason it's been edited out of everything, and it doesn't have anything to do with people were doing nasty things with boys and girls. It had to do with what that entails and how that affects you in either spell casting or in your ascension, whether it's a positive or a negative thing. We've talked about this many times, and if you've worked with me individually, you know that I talk about that as well. Peter, welcome, brother. So we talk about that because that whole ideology. There's certain times when it's efficient, and you can gain a lot more in your relationship, and also gain a lot more in both of your spiritual practices in a relationship. And then there's times when it's a hindrance, when it's your oil time or your Christ oil time to not eat from the tree of life and have that thing happen. So people just assume, because I've had people ask me that question. I guess I could put myself up in full screen for a second so you guys can see my ugly mug while I'm talking. So some people just assume that if you have any kind of sexual contact, that it's only people trying to steal the energy, because negative people would want to do a sexual rite on the time of a person's Christ oil ascension, because it creates a different kind of oil in the brain. That's where it's a coal-like substance. That's where you get that if you're being bad, Santa Claus gives you coal. Because that whole story of Santa Claus is about the Christ oil and the crucifixion and the resurrection and the illumination. And if you're not doing the right things and you're eating of the tree of life at that time, then it secretes a coal-like substance in your brain instead of exploding into this euphoric DMT. The DMT degrades into a coal-like substance, which lowers your vibration and locks you more into this, but it does give you a lot of physical energy, because it does transmit back to the body instead of illuminating all of your brain cells and raising your vibrational pattern. It actually solidifies it more in this place, and that coal-like substance lowers your vibration, but it gives you more of a physical prowess. So the energy transfer between people is more intense during that time period if you do that and you use that sexual right energy on the time of a person's Christ oil ascension. And if they're both on the same schedule, they're both, say, like I'm a Virgo, if I was having sex with a Virgo female at that moment, also on, because we would be on the same cycle, that would solidify more physical and energy transfer in the physical for something that we could be working on magic wise or otherwise in the physical. The opposite is that instead of that moment, if you do it after that event happens, the Christ oil, if you do it after that event happens, now you've illuminated and raised your vibration. And if you then do a sexual rite ritual of some sort, you will also have a better effect, but it won't lower your vibration. So that the religions knew about this, and they all still know about it, but they don't want you guys out there in the world knowing about it, because you can raise or lower your vibration by having that knowledge and the knowledge of the Christ oil within that goes up and down your spine once a month. They don't want you knowing about any of that, because they want you just in this life, and they want you hooked on their drugs and drinking alcohol and all of that stuff, right? So, Reese said the last quarter of the new moon on the 29th. So we're on the 21st now. So we're going right into that, right? No, Chandler said it's your moon sign, right, Leo? Not right now. It was last week. Last Friday, it started on Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or actually Friday, Saturday, Sunday of last week was, because I'm a Virgo, was actually because it was a Virgo moon during the full moon. So it was on a full moon, as well as moving through from the full moon into the Christ oil for all Virgos. and now it's halfway through it, like Reese was just saying, because the 29th is the last quarter of the new moon. So now we're going into the new moon. It's waning. The full moon is waning down to the new moon. So we're almost ready for the new moon. Stephanie, welcome. Stephanie said, fun fact, the 29th is my anniversary and my papa's birthday on the last quarter of the new moon. That's kind of cool, right? So welcome, Stephanie, by the way. Right? Yeah. So you have to realize that they don't want you to know about that. So that was some of the stuff that was edited out. And some of that information is currently in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I was just talking about that the other day, wondering how many scrolls we never got to read because private collectors kept them out, because we didn't get to read all of them. Those are the ones that were released to the public that were out there, that some of the people grabbed. Like a lot of people bought them and put them into the museum of over in, I think it's in London. I don't know what they call that over there, the London Museum, I guess, London Museum of Antiquities or something like that. Don't quote me on that. If you're English, don't get mad at me because I said the wrong name. But I do know that England has a really big portion of those, but other countries do as well. So we have most of them because if you look them up online, you really only find about 8, and there were hundreds of scrolls. So when you go Dead Sea Scrolls, Google that, you're going to get, I think there's like 12 total that you can have access to right now. There's more than that out there. So the Vatican archives have taken some, and private collectors that don't want the world to know about it have taken some of them. So there are still some out there. But I wanted to announce there's a video. I'm going to put it into the Law of One chat that is from YouTube. I put one out, another version of it on my page that 3 days ago now. Today's Friday, so I think it was Wednesday. So 2 days ago, they released to the world new information that a guy has, and he posted it, and I vetted it to make sure, or actually made sure that my sources had vetted it, that they did scans of the Giza Plateau, because there's always been information out there, including Thoth the Atlantean, saying that the halls of Amenti, I know this is off of the sexual right conversation that Ra's talking about, but it's actually important, that the halls of Amenti were below the pyramidal complex. The middle pyramid on the Giza Plateau, all the pyramids, all 3 of the big pyramids that are there on the plateau, but beneath the middle pyramid on the Giza Plateau, they have looked into that with ground penetrating radar, and they have discovered that there are columns that are going below the pyramids, all 3 of them. And of these columns are round tube-like columns. And there's some sort of something they think that might be staircases spiraling down all of these columns. But it looks to me to be more like an electrical or water pump of some kind. But that doesn't necessarily mean it is that, because they think it might be the staircase. And it goes down some 800 meters or something like that, or 88 meters. It's really big. You'll have to see the video. And in contrast, the biggest pyramid is only like 80 meters tall. And these things are going down in the ground some 800 meters. And then below that are 2 big box-like structures that those pillars are sitting on that seem to be hollow on the inside. And those go down another like 100 meters into the ground. So they're saying that that literally that could be the Akashic record, the halls of Amenti that Thoth the Atlantean was saying was there. And I've seen the actual scans that they scanned. You're seeing, and in the video that I'm going to put into the Law of One chat on Messenger, you'll be able to see, and I'll post that video also. It's a link to a Twitter or X account video that's there. I'm trying to get a hold of the video and see if I can download it so I can repost it. So far, I found one on, I think it was TikTok or Facebook, that was done by another person that was shorter, and I posted that one last night. But the one from X, I waited until today because I wanted to make sure to vet it 100%. And I was told that it's actual, and and already had in less than 24 hours, it had 8 million views, almost 9 million views, was 8,700,000 views. So I'm going to post that after the show. Or maybe while Ra's talking, I'll go and get it off of X and post it to the Law of One chat, and then repost that also. But it'll be a link to Twitter if you don't have a Twitter account. That's why I'm trying to find it on other platforms as well. because they're sharing it all over the internet right now. And just that video alone has 9 million views by today. And that's the one on Twitter. So I'm trying to get a copy of it to get it from another platform, or just so I can download it, because then I'll post it on all the platforms as well. So I'm going to see if I can do that later on today, or have it sent to me. It was sent to me the night that it was released on Wednesday night, and I waited until Thursday before I tried to repost it. And yesterday I reposted one of them, and I think the link to that, but I will send the link over. So if you don't have a Twitter account, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I am going to post that, and then hopefully I can get a copy of the video and then post it. But it shows a computer image from that from the actual scans that they did to what the structures look like that are under the pyramids. And you're probably going to get the government of Egypt saying that it's a lie and not true, and they'll probably seize it, and they'll probably not allow people to go down there and check it out because they want to be down there first. But they're going to look into it, because if it is in fact the Akashic record, the Halls of Amente, they're going to want to know what the records are that are there. So it's going to be a race for the cabal, the evil people, to try and get a hold of those records to squash them. So you're going to see a lot of that happening. So there's a very good possibility that we won't see that stuff out for a while for us to read, because they're going to want to sift through it and only release the things that are going to make them look like gods and get them paid a lot of money. So they're not going to release it right away. So I'm hoping that somebody gets down there that is coalition friendly and pulls out some of the information, or gets some images and get some of the information that's down there before the cabals get a hold of it, and not let anyone else have it. So we'll see what happens, but it appears to be that this is legitimate, and they really did find this. And the fact that it's still released now suggests that the governments are curious and want to go down there to look at it. But same thing happened 8 years ago when I got images from the 7 Clicks outside of Cairo, where they found buried in the sand out there the oldest Christian church in the history of the world, and none of you know about it because the governments clamped down on that information. I had my computers scrubbed by the American government for of the photos that were involved in that were leaked out from there to me from the people that were digging down there as soon as the Egyptian government took control of it. And to this day, no one has ever heard about it except for those of us who know about it, the people that were digging there, and the ones who saw the photos like myself that they were trying to leak them to. So I have no actual proof anymore. And so people like to say that we made all that up, but I tell you truly, I saw color photos taken from cell phones 8 years ago from down there that were forwarded to me of that church it was perfectly intact, buried under the sand, the oldest Christian church on the face of the earth ever found. And no one in the world gets to see it or know about it currently. So I would wager that the same thing's going to happen there, because you're not going to see an excavation of that site. They're not going to dig down. They'll go from a little bit further out, I'm sure, and they'll tunnel in at an angle, but you're not going to get to know about it. I'm not going to get to know about it. So we'll see what comes of it. Hopefully somebody finds a way down there and digs into it and finds out. Okay, let's get back to the Law of One. But I wanted to announce that I am going to post that video link from Twitter. I'm going to do that right now while Raw is talking here. Let me pull this back up on the screen. So if you're in the Law of One chat, you'll be able to look at it. But if you're not, then you'll have to get a hold of me personally, and I can forward that to you, or I'll put it up on my page on Facebook so that you could go there and get a link. But if you don't have a Twitter account or X, whatever they're calling themselves now, you may not be able to see the video. So that's why I'm trying to get it to change platforms. And if I can download the video, I will put it out there for people to see on every platform that I'm a part of. All right. So let me go back over here and let's start with the Law of One. We're now still talking about sexual right energy and some of it being involved with the religions. But mostly Dawn's just asking questions about this energy transference and how it transfers from one person to another. And if you know anything about that, the male is the energy that transfers from the male to the female during sex. That's how it works. I don't know if Ra's going to explain that part, but that is how it works. Women receive the energy that the men expel, So that's why, like, men joke about it in comedy, where they joke about it where, if you do really good in sex, why is it your woman jumps up and she's ready to run out to the gym after sex and you're spent? It's because your energy that you build up releases into her. There's a physical release of energy as well as a spiritual release of energy into the female during that time. And that's why you always saw that when you had back in the days in Europe, when you had the Druid and the Wiccan religions, when they were split separate, the Druid religion were all men and the Wiccans were all women. In those pagan religions, now they're mixed with both. Not that that's bad. They all have to come back. They separated them on purpose because of the masculine and feminine energies. So you would have those rituals going where you would have the head priest and the head priestess, and they would almost always end up being a couple anyways. So they would end up doing those things so that the woman could then cause and cast spells at a lot more powerful sense. And then the men would also work with them in that, and they would have that happen because they knew who got the energy and what the energy was potentially used for, or a potential to use in that way. And they would time that stuff out at the right times of the month to be able to cast spells during full moons, new moons, and the like. And I don't know how in depth that Raw is going to get here. I don't remember. It's been about 5 years since I've gotten to this point in the books. So let's continue.
Question 84.18. Questioner, after the veil, in our particular case now, we have, in the circuitry of which we were speaking, what you call blockages. Could you describe what occurs with the first blockage and what its effects are on each of the entities, assuming that one blocks and the other does not, or if both are blocked? Answer: I am Ra. This material has been covered previously. If both entities are blocked, both will have an increased hunger for the same activity, seeking to unblock the baffled flow of energy. If one entity is blocked and the other vibrates in love, the entity baffled will hunger still, but
well, guys, that's why I did that, right? That's why I went back to this. And, just specifically because of that, Stephanie had said, for those of you listening on the MP3 broadcast, you can't see the chat. Stephanie said, oh, you started showing us the text of the Raw Conversation Suite. I spaced out when it was just audio. And Chandra said, I did the same thing. I thought about it before and thought about going back to this so that you guys could see the visuals, because I know that some people learn better when you can see and hear at the same time. And I didn't for a long time, and I feel bad for not doing that. And then I always suggested to people that learned that way and that could comprehend things better with seeing visuals as well as the voice, or just seeing visuals instead of just the voice. And I would always refer to you guys to go back to the first time I did it, but I realized I'm doing it at a higher vibration now and explaining things in a more higher vibrational detail. So I decided to switch back, because it was just I had too many people truly saying that they wish that I had visuals up on the screen. And so I'm like, well, this, instead of me doing it and doing the extra work, these guys already had it. And this is what I used the first time I went through the Law of One. So we're going to continue with this all until we hit the end of the Law of One. It's just unfortunate that I waited until I was like on sessions 80, before I did it. Right. So the last 45 sessions, welcome, Jamie, will have the visuals for you to look at so that you can, hear it and see, so you can read along while he's talking and know what's going on. So it's better. I like it better myself. Like I said, this is how I read it. When I read for the first time, I listened to these videos and read the words while listening to the audio at the same time, because it helps even me. It usually helps almost everybody. Some people are better just with listening, and some people are better just with reading. And some people can do both. And I like both because it helps me. If I'm going to read, I'll just read, and I'm okay with that. But if I'm hearing things, I tend to, if I see them and hear them, I tend to comprehend more as well. But I can concentrate on both. But I prefer to have it to where I have the visual and the audio. So, right, here we go. Let's continue.
Have a tendency to attempt to continue the procedure of satiating the increasing hunger with the one vibrating green ray due to an impression that this entity might prove helpful in this endeavor. The green ray active individual shall polarize slightly in the direction of service to others, but have only the energy with which it began. Question 84.19. Questioner, I didn't mean to cover previously covered material. What I was actually attempting to do was discover something new in asking the question. So please, if I ask any questions in the future that have already been covered, don't bother to repeat the material. I am just searching the...
If I quit pausing it, then it quits being blurry, Fiona. It's me pausing it. If I let it go after about 10 or 15 seconds, it gets unblurry. But sometimes in the audio and the videos, that there's one or two every now and then that stays blurry and doesn't get unblurry. But for the most part, if I leave it alone as it's playing, there's a background lighting that comes up, and it becomes more clearer. But the more I stop and then start, it gets a little blurry. So I apologize for that.
Same area for the possibility of greater enlightenment with respect to this particular area, since it seems to be one of the major areas of experience in our present condition of veiling that produces a very large amount of catalyst, and I am trying to understand, to use a poor term, how this veiling process created a greater experience and how this experience evolved. These questions are very difficult to ask. It occurs to me that many statues or drawings of the one known as Lucifer or the devil are shown with an erection. Is this a function of orange ray blockage, and was this known in a minimal way by those who devised these statues and drawings? Answer: I am Ra. There is, of course, much other distortion involved in a discussion of any mythic archetypical form. However, we may answer in the affirmative and note that you are perceptive. Question 84.20. Questioner: with respect to the green, blue, and indigo transfers of energy, how would the mechanism for these transfers differ from the orange ray mechanism in making them possible or setting the groundwork for them? I know this is very difficult to ask and I may not be making any sense, but what I am trying to do is gain an understanding of the foundation for the transfers in each of the rays and the preparations for the transfers, or the fundamental requirements or biases and potentials for these transfers. Could you expand on that for me, please? I am sorry for the poor question. Answer: I am Ra. We would take a moment to state in reply to a previous comment that we shall answer each query whether or not it has been previously covered, for not to do so would be to baffle the flow of quite another transfer of energy. To respond to your query, we firstly wish to agree with your supposition that the subject you now query upon is a large one, for in it lies an entire system of opening the gateway to intelligent infinity. You may see that some information is necessarily shrouded in mystery by our desire to preserve the free will of the adept. The great key to blue, indigo, and finally, the great capital of the column of sexual energy transfer, violet energy transfers, is the metaphysical bond or distortion, which is the name among your peoples of unconditional love. In the blue-ray energy transfer, the quality of this love is refined in the fire of honest communication and clarity. This, shall we say, normally speaking in general, takes a substantial portion of your space-time to accomplish, although there are instances of matings so well refined in previous incarnations and so well remembered that the blue-ray may be penetrated at once. This energy transfer is of great benefit to the seeker in that all communication from this seeker is, thereby, refined, and the eyes of honesty and clarity look upon a new world. Such is the nature of blue-ray energy, and such is one mechanism of potentiating and crystallizing it. As we approach indigo ray transfer, we find ourselves in a shadowland. We cannot give you information straight out or plain, for this is seen by us to be an infringement. We cannot speak at all of violet ray transfer, as we do not, again, desire to break the law of confusion. We may say that these jewels, though dearly bought, are beyond price for the seeker, and might suggest that just as each awareness is arrived at through a process of analysis, synthesis, and inspiration, so should the seeker approach its mate and evaluate each experience, seeking the jewel. Question 84.21. Questioner: is there any way to tell which ray the transfer was for an individual after the experience? Answer: I am Ra. There is only a subjective yardstick or measure of such. If the energies have flowed so that love is made whole, green ray transfer has taken place. If, by the same entity's exchange, greater ease in communication and greater sight has been experienced, the energy has been refined to the blue ray energy center. If the polarized entities, by the same energy transfer experience, find that the faculties of will and faith have been stimulated, not for a brief while but for a great duration of what you call time, you may perceive the indigo ray transfer. We may not speak of the violet ray transfer except to note that it is an opening to the gateway of intelligent infinity. Indeed, the indigo ray transfer is also this, but, shall we say, the veil has not yet been lifted. Question 84.22.
Right. So the energy that is transferred does have obviously effect on all of the different chakras, but unless you have pierced the veil, as you see there at the end, then you don't. It doesn't activate in the same way because you don't have the potentiation to use it for those. You don't have access to the potentiation of that energy. So literally, it's once the veil becomes thinner and you start piercing the veil, then that becomes more. You can actually sense that energy and then learn how to harness that energy for any kind of workings or just for a better relationship and a better sexual relationship with your partner. So that's that is that. So you do get something out of it, even in the physical, no matter what level you are. But the higher the consciousness goes, the more intense that it becomes in different aspects of those potential chakras or those chakras as potentiation to the sexual right energy, to the energy release that happens and transfer that happens.
Questioner, did most Logwa plan, before the veil, to create a system of random sexual activity or the specific pairing of entities for specific periods of time, or did they have an objective in this respect? Answer, I am Ra. This shall be the last full query of this working. The harvest from the previous creation was that which included the male and female mind, body, spirit. It was the intention of the original Logwa that entities mate with one another in any fashion which caused a greater polarization. It was determined, after observation of the process of many Logwa, that polarization increased manyfold if the mating were not indiscriminate. Consequent Logwa thusly preserved a bias towards the mated relationship which is more characteristic of more disciplined personalities and of what you may call higher densities. The free will of each entity, however, was always paramount and a bias only could be offered. May we ask if there may be any brief queries before we leave this instrument? Question 84.23. Question.
Right before we get to the last question here, welcome Tina. Right? Welcome Tina. I saw you there, but I wanted to let him finish that. So let's continue this and then we'll move to the next session. All right, here we go.
Is there any way that we can make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer, I am Ra. We would ask that each of the support group be especially vigilant in the, what you would call, immediate future due to this instrument's unbidden but serious potential for increased distortion towards illness health. You are most conscientious. We thank you, my friends, and leave you in the glorious light and love of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Good. That was session 84 of the Law of One. The video should switch automatically and transfer over to session 85. That was session 84, April 14th, 1982, the Law of One. So this is session 85, April 26th, 1982.
I am Ra. We communicate now. Question 85.1. Questioner, could you first give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. We ask your permission to preface this answer by the inclusion of the greeting which we use. Question 85.2. Questioner, that is agreeable. Answer, I am Ra. We greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We were having some difficulty with the channel of energy influx due to pain flare, as you call this distortion of the physical body complex of this instrument. Therefore, it was necessary to speak as briefly as possible until we had safely transferred the mind, body, spirit complex of this instrument. We beg your kind indulgence for our discourtesy which was appropriate. The condition of this instrument is as follows. The necessity for extreme vigilance is less, due to the somewhat lessened physical complex energy deficit. the potential for distortion remains and continued watchfulness over the ingestion of helpful foodstuffs continues to be recommended. Although the instrument is experiencing more than a, shall we say, normal for this mind, body, spirit complex, distortions towards pain at this space-time nexus, the basic condition is less distorted. The vital energies are as previously stated. We commend the vigilance and care of this group.
See, so you have to look at Ascension Foods. If you're going to be transmuting energy, if you're going to be doing psychic work, if you're going to be channeling in any way, you need to make sure that you eat the proper foods, because if you eat processed foods, high sugar foods, high salt foods, it's going to lower your vibration. It's going to cause your pain body to have inflammation, and then you're not going to be able to do the work that you're trying to do. So it's going to be harder, even if you have abilities that you were born with. It's going to be harder for you to do these abilities. You'll have an easier time when you eat more properly, eat organic and eat healthier, and less sugar, less salt. And if you're going to use salt at all, you should be using like pink Himalayan salt or sea salt, and not this normal table salt that they have in most countries in Europe and the United States specifically. They have the table salt they have is just horrible for you. It'll cause you to have high blood pressure and strokes and all kinds of stuff, right? So you have to make sure that you eat proper, eat good food, stay away from all the candies, cakes, and pies unless you make them yourself, so you can control the amount of sugars, the amount of processed wheat, the amount of salt, and the amount of stuff that's in it. Because otherwise, if you buy something that's made somewhere in the United States, it's going to have all kinds of really bad sugars in it that are horrible for you. And they're going to hide sugar into places where they say, like, you know, like the bread in the United States, it'll say enriched wheat flour. That means sugar. It means it was enriched with sugar. Always, that's what that means. If you're going to buy something, you have to make sure it's 100% whole wheat, or go to a different, instead of using wheat flour, use a different flour, like a flour made from mesquite or from hickory, not the wood itself, but from the plant itself that they grow. It grows wild in the United States, in the Southwest desert, grows all over the world. But it's grown enough because people brought it with them over here, that when people were coming across the plains of the United States, going across the South through Texas, Arizona, New Mexico into California, they started running out of food or flour on their path coming from the East Coast. The Native Americans would show them this stuff because that's what they used. And we know about it till today. When I was living in Arizona, I was going to buy a plot of land that had most of those trees on that. I was going to actually start manufacturing that flour at one point. You can get it now. People put it in their drinks and their smoothies in stores. So it's there already in powder form, in flour form. But people aren't baking with it. It's far better for you, sweeter naturally without sugars in it. It's a khaki color. It's not a white color because they don't bleach it. But it's really good for you. You could look it up. Look up mesquite flour or hickory flour, and you'll see those plants are almost identical. The mesquite tree and the hickory tree have the same flower that comes off of it, the same plant that comes off of the tree itself. And when you dry that out and grind it down into a flour, they both have the same taste and smell and flavor, and they have far better nutrients in them by 100-fold than wheat flour. But the industry was already in place in the United States in the East, and those people have a lot of money, like the oil barons, and they won't let anyone change because they don't want to lose their business. Okay, let's continue here.
Question 85.3. Questioner: what is the current situation with respect to our fifth density, service to self-polarized companion? Answer: I am Ra. Your companion has never been more closely associated with you than at the present nexus. You may see a kind of crisis occurring upon the so-called magical level at this particular space-time nexus. Question 85.4. Questioner: what is the nature of this crisis? Answer: I am Ra. The nature of this crisis is the determination of the relative polarity of your companion and yourselves. You are in the position of being in the third density illusion and consequently having the conscious collective magical ability of the neophyte, whereas your companion is most adept. However, the faculties of will and faith and the calling to the light have been used by this group to the exclusion of any significant defolarization from the service to others path. If your companion can possibly depolarize this group, it must do so, and that quickly, for in this unsuccessful attempt at exploring the wisdom of separation it is encountering some depolarization. This shall continue. Therefore, the efforts of your companion are pronounced at this space-time and time-space nexus. Question 85.5. Questioner: I am totally aware of the lack of necessity or rational need for naming of entities or things, but I was wondering if this particular entity had a name just so that we could increase our efficiency of communicating with respect to him. Does he have a name? Answer: I am Ra. Yes. Question 85.6. Questioner: would it be magically bad for us to know that name, or would it make no difference? Answer: I am Ra. It would make a difference. Question 85.7. Questioner: what would the difference be? Answer: I am Ra. If one wishes to have power over an entity, it is an aid to know that entity's name. If one wishes no power over an entity but wishes to collect that entity into the very heart of one's own being, it is well to forget the naming. Both processes are magically viable. Each is polarized in a specific way. It is your choice. Question 85.8. Questioner: I am assuming that it would be a problem for the instrument to meditate without the hand pressure from the other self at this time because of the continued greeting. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct if the instrument wishes to remain free from this potential separation of its mind, body, spirit complex from the third density it now experiences. Question 85.9. Questioner: since our fifth density companion has been monitoring our communication with Ra, it has been made aware of the veiling process of which we have been speaking. It seems to me that conscious knowledge and acceptance of the fact that this veiling process was used for the purpose for which it was used would make it difficult to maintain high negative polarization. Could you clear up my thinking on that, please?
So you have to realize, and then we'll let that continue to answer that question. Okay. Yes, right, Cassie. I was over there looking at that and didn't see your remark till I got back over here in the studio because I was on the page from YouTube to be able to pause to go into that in a little bit more detail. So Cassie said, let me put that up on the screen. She says, "Well, that's interesting about the naming and that making sense." Yeah, you have to realize that to control a thing, you must know a thing. Okay. To defeat a thing, you must know a thing. You can't defeat something you don't know. You have to know what your intention has to have a point, pinpoint. Control of a thing has to have a pinpoint. So for someone to try to control you, if they just blanket like society, like they were trying to do with the say the shot, for instance, in the non-vaccinated. They named them the non-vaccinated. It gave them a generic name to blanket anyone that was in opposition because they didn't know the names, because they couldn't publish the names of all the people that they suspected didn't have the shot because that was illegal. But to get by that, they just started talking about they, them, those people. And so that's giving them an identity. That's what you see happening in politics. When you see politics referring to the other side, they'll say those people, that like they did with, say, here in the United States, the MAGA people, and them, those people, the MAGA extremists. So that was anybody that wasn't us is potentially that. And that's what drums up in people's minds this hatred towards they, them, those people, them, and being the enemy. So that is something that appears and happens naturally. Let me bump the screen over here for a second. That appears naturally and happens naturally to the human mind in this place, where you have to have that, because they know what everybody should know, that you should know, and that everybody should know, is that your intention and your focus, your intention delivers your focus. Your intention creates your reality. So for your focus to be on a group of people, you have to label that group of people to know for your intention to target that group of people. If you're casting a spell, you have to name what you're doing and who you're talking to or whatever. So people don't realize how focused that has to be, and been teaching this that I've been doing since I was in my early 20s. So for over 30 years, I've been doing this. We teach you not just intention when it comes to that, not just magic, but in anything that you have to name things. You have to give it a purpose. You have to give it a name. So the same for projection of in life coaching, in spiritual life coaching, in business and leadership. We would teach people, if you want to get a promotion, start acting like it, start dressing like it, start walking like it, start talking like it. Why? You're giving it a name. You're giving it a frequency. You're giving it a vibration. You're giving it an energy. You are becoming that by starting to change yourself into it. So the more you say, I want to be the store manager, and you start acting like a store manager, people above that position are going to see you acting like a store manager. And they're going to say, this person's already starting to show that they're doing the job. That's you giving it a name. You're giving yourself the title. Do you see? I am this. Not I want to be. I am. That present tense. So the same thing, if you're trying to fight against someone, the very first thing that you need to do if you have an anonymous enemy is you have to give it a name. Hence the reason for ninja, the ninja warriors, and the immortals further back in the time of Xerxes. They were faceless. Without a name, then you can't discern an individual. That's why today people put a mask on. That's why they do that even today. They put on a ski mask. The IRA used to do that. People do it now where they put on the who do you think taught them that? They put on a mask and you can just see their eyes and a slit for their mouth. You can't give them a name. So the very first thing that people want to do is unveil them so they know who they are, to hold them responsible. You can't fight against an enemy that you don't know, that you can't see. So the ninja wore all black and they attacked at night, so they were harder to see, natural camouflage, but you didn't know who they were unless you caught them and pulled their hood off. So you couldn't target them in the daylight to try and investigate them because you couldn't figure out who they were. But if you have a name, then you can defeat that person. So even if there's an assassin trying to kill you from another plane of existence, not just knowing where that assassin is not always the key to the understanding. Same thing in real life. So knowing someone's name, knowing about that person, the more you can know about someone, the more you can round out your focus on them. So if you're going to be trying to defeat somebody, even in a psychic way or in a psychological way, the more you know about your enemy, know thy enemy like you know thyself. That's the art of war from thousands of years ago. Why is that? You have to know them as well as you know yourself to defeat them. Because the more you know about them, the more you're going to be able to defeat them and use what you know about them against them. So it's easier to defend against a psychic attack if you know who's doing it and you have somebody to focus on a name. It's the same thing with if you're doing a reading on someone, you get a read on them, even if you're doing it like Tina's here. You've done it before. Anybody else has done it? Chandra's here. Also have done that. When you're getting a read on somebody, you see their name in the chat. And you can focus on that energy from the name. So you're using the name of somebody in the chat to be able to focus on them, to tap into their energy and their higher self or their guides to be able to do a psychic reading on. If you didn't have any of that and they just came up with nothing, say a silhouette like on from Facebook without a picture in there, and you didn't know whether it was a man or a woman with no name and it just says Facebook user, you have to be a stronger psychic to be able to tap into that person. You can still do it, but people that are lower level psychics wouldn't be able to tap in as easily, and they wouldn't do a very good read because they're not capable of looking at that and going past that generic, because they don't have a name, they don't have a face, they don't have something like that. That's why you see in a lot of sites, they'll say, give me a picture of yourself and ask the question, because people can look at the picture and then they have a name that you've sent it. So there's a name that goes with it and then your image, and it helps them to contact your higher self and do readings on you. Same thing if they're wanting a read on someone. I've had people do that when we were running psychic reading and development. where people would put a picture up and they would say, can I get a read on this person? And I would say, first of all, we have to know that you have permission from that person's higher self. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to give you a read. And so I'll ask that person. And I've had people do that with someone who was dead and put up a picture because they were testing the psychics to see if the psychics would know that they were dead. I'm one of those people that I can see a picture and I can tell you whether that person's alive or dead. So when they say there's a missing person on television and they put a picture of that person up on television, doesn't matter if that picture is old or not. I can look into the eyes of that person and I can tell you whether that person's dead or alive. I've done that many times where they'll be like, here's a missing person. She went missing 3 days ago. And I look at the picture on the screen and I go, that girl's dead already. That girl was murdered and she was dead. I've worked for police departments around the United States solving mysteries and solving murders and things like that over the course of the years. We used to do that at Psychic Reading and Development. We used to be called in by police all over the United States and all over the world. Worked for some in South Africa, worked for some in Norway, worked for some in England. We would get calls. We just haven't done it for about 4 years now. Because we changed the name and moved away from doing that. But there's a group of us, there's about 6 of us psychics that we would get called in to do that. So having a name, having an image makes it easier to hone in on somebody and tune in. So if somebody's attacking like a entity from the 4th dimension, 4th density, attacking Carla as an assassin, occupying the same space in that reality on this planet at the same time trying to murder Carla, it makes it easier for them to defend against that person, not just knowing that that person's in proximity to her, but knowing that person's name makes it easier for them to defend against and hone in on that person, right? Right, Joanne says a lot about my picture then, right? Laugh out loud. Yeah, right? So, yeah, that's funny with the picture that you use now because there is no picture there, but you have a sacred geometry and stuff like that on there. I can just see what I can see right here. That's it. Hi, Joanne. Welcome, by the way. And Risen Nation, welcome. So, yeah, okay, so let's continue with Raw's description. So the question, you can see it up on the screen. I'll put it back up on the screen. I think I'm still on the screen here, aren't I? Yeah, let me put it back up on the screen. So the question from since our 5th sense density companion has been monitoring our communications with Ra, it has been made aware of the veiling process of which we have spent, or we've been speaking. It seems to me that the conscious knowledge and acceptance of the fact that this veiling process was used for the purpose for which it was used would make it difficult to maintain the high negative polarization. Can you clear this my thinking up on this, please? And Ra's about to answer that.
Answer, I am Ra. We are unsure as to our success in realigning your modes of mentation. We may, however, comment. The polarization process, as it enters 4th density, is one.
Okay, hold on. Let me pause this because Fiona has a very good question. Let me put it up on the screen. Can I ask a question? How can an anonymous reader be able to read somebody when we don't trust them? We don't know who they are behind their scenes, behind their screen, if it's through personal or not just a question. If your higher self allows it, anyone can read about you, even remotely. If you try to block it, some of us, it doesn't take. Some of us can get past that anyways. Depending on how good a person is psychic and how high up they are in their vibration. If somebody's unveiled, because assassins will try to hide, and they will try to do everything they can do to stop psychics from reading them. So lower level psychics would not be able to read them, but higher level psychics that are unveiled can, because you can't hide from them. Just like I can stop anyone from reading me at any time that I want to. Someone tries to do a read on me, if I don't want them to, they won't be able to. Okay? Because the closer you are to your higher self, the more control you have over that. However, if somebody is still close to my level and I try to block them, they can penetrate that by going to my higher self. And if it's for my greater good, my higher self will allow that and override me down here. Okay? So it becomes a race for someone who is higher up. So, but when you do that, with somebody who's trying to be an assassin, they'll only be in a certain level because that's where they have to be able to affect the 3rd dimensional reality in doing that. So just your average person, I can look at any person on the street. They can't stop me from seeing whether they're truly in service to others or in service to self. They think they're hiding and that nobody can see them and they're in service to self. And I'll take one glance at them and I can go service to self, others, others, self, self, others, self, self. And people are like, you can't know that, but I can. I've done that to where literally I was standing one time at a movie theater. I was 21 years old, 22 years old. I was working at this movie theater and this girl was working there with me and she was Hispanic and she was about my age, maybe a little bit younger. I think she was 18 and I was 22. And we were standing at the ticket booth where we were taking tickets for people that were coming in and we were overlooking the mall. That door faced the mall. And there were people walking around the mall. And I was talking about that because I mentioned something about somebody. And she said, wait, she said, so, and I said to her at the time, we make up stories about people when we see them. And it's not always necessarily true, but I'm one of the people that I can see people and I can tell you a lot about them. So she said, really, you think you can do that? And I was like, yes, I can. So she pointed to a guy who was walking towards us. She said, you see that man right there? I said, yeah. She said, tell me about him. I don't think you can do that. Tell me about him. I said, okay. So I looked at him and I started describing his life to her. And I said, but we don't know the answer to that because I'll have to ask him when he gets here. And she looked at me and she said, you can tell all that by looking at him. And I said, well, I'm not just looking at him. I'm looking at him. And I'm able to see his life. And I said, but I'll have to ask him to see if I'm 100% accurate. I believe that I am, though. She says, you don't have to ask him. And I said, how do you know? She said, that's my father. And he walked up to her and gave her a hug and gave her a kiss and was coming to get her because she was about to get off work in like 10 minutes. And I didn't know that. She didn't tell me that. But she said, you were absolutely 100% right. And I was like, so some of us have that ability. So to answer your question, if you're somebody that's high enough vibration, you can stop someone from doing that. But in general, if somebody is a high enough vibrational psychic and has the sight, then you can't hide from them. And they can see through anything that you're doing, but they can also get a reading on you. And then of course, free will. If you ask for a reading, even if you show the wrong image, and we've had that happen too, where somebody say, can I get a reading? And they have an image. Happens to me all the time where someone sends me a friend's request and I look at the image and I'm like, this is not you. This is not who you are. And they're like, yes, that is. And I'm like, no, it's not. You're hiding. I don't know why you're hiding, but you're trying to convince me that you are this person when this is not who you are. So I don't know why you're doing that. You're either trying to be a scam and get money from me, or you're a AI and you're trying to pretend that you're a human, or you're a slave in some country, or you're a man. Most of the time it's black males from Africa who are trying to be white females in the United States, weirdly. I think it's because they're homosexual, and so they're trying to do that. But I think they're also looking for victimhood. Some of them are scam, and they're trying to just, give you a picture of a girl, pretend they're a girl, and then say, oh, no, I'm stuck here in Africa, and you have to send me money so I can get out. And you send money, and they're just ripping you off, and that's their deal. So it is hard for some people, and for people who don't have psychic abilities, they just can't. They just can't do that stuff most of the time anyways. But your intuition is there. And if you pay attention to your intuition, you'll actually know it. You have intuition, you have abilities. Everybody can develop them. So it doesn't matter if you don't trust them. You can, if you're higher vibration, you can block some of it. But as soon as you block things, we will then ask your higher self if it's okay to know the information. And that's how we can get that. So even if we're trying to heal somebody who doesn't believe that we can heal them, we can appeal to their higher self, and their higher self can say it's for their greater good. Go ahead, and then we can heal them. The same thing with doing reads. So if somebody refuses because they're evil, and they're like, no, I don't give you any permission. I have total power over myself, and I don't give you any permission. If their higher soul is actually evil, it's a little bit more difficult to get a read on them. But if their higher soul is not, and they have just chosen to be evil in this life, their higher self might say, go ahead and get that psychic reading. So we will appeal to your higher self almost always in that case if we're being blocked in some way, unless you're good enough to block us. But depends on who you are. To block me, you would have to be almost my equal on the evil side to even get anywhere near blocking me. And even then, it would be very difficult for you to do so, because then if I move into my higher self and work from that place because you're blocking me in 3D, then I'll get through, because even your higher self can't block me in my higher self. It's just the way the universe works when you get up high enough, because evil cannot exist halfway through the sixth density. Right, so let me check the chat and see if I missed any other questions you guys are having. Fiona says, I'm the same. I can stop anybody from having a read on me. I don't let everybody in my energy. I haven't my guides telling me not to. Well, yeah, it depends a lot. You should always be taking care of yourself and not just allowing people in like that to get a hold of your energy. Penny said, Leo, can we also let a reader read a generic reading on ourselves if we don't want them to dive deep? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you just want a generic read, but you don't want them to get into a really in-depth read, you can slow that down depending on your abilities. You can stop them from doing that because it's free will. And because it's free will, you can't get them to, but if you're evil and you're trying to hide, and somebody's good enough, they're going to see that you're evil, and then they're not going to care what you're hiding. They'll just assume that you're evil, and they won't try to do a read on you past that, except for enough to see that you're evil. But if you're not, and for whatever reason you don't want a psychic to do a reading on you, it's still free will. But your higher self will determine. So if your higher self decides that it's for your best good to get a reading at that point, and you don't believe it, you're good. They might have your higher self might tell them it's okay, and they'll get a reading on you because your higher self wants you to have that reading. So in that respect, that's what you have to look for, right? Fiona said, I do all of my investigations. Don't worry on these anonymous spirit readers, as they call themselves. I look through their files. I look through everything. What is that? Nickel. Yeah, I always do the same thing. I always look at people in that respect and try to do things. So let's see here. What is it? Cassie said we should do the tests that the CIA psychic observers did. I think we could get that info on how they tested the gifts that people have. Yeah, I've worked with those people. I know a lot of people who worked in that industry doing that. Steve, welcome. So they have a lot of psychics that work for them. I've had people tell me that a lot of the psychics that are thinking they're channeling people are actually just channeling misinformation from the CIA, that they're actually the ones behind a lot of it. But I also have found that there's a lot of that's misinformation that's going on by people that are believing that it's not true, because that's what they want you to think. The CIA, the NSA, all of the government officials, the government deep states of all governments, they don't want any of you out there believing in psychic abilities. So that's why they got the churches to tell you that it's the devil and it's demons, because they don't want you having psychic abilities, because it'll help you to ascend if you have those abilities. So the church's official canon today is still those are demons and devils. And then on the political side, for those who are not religious or spiritual in any way, it's the deep state, it's the CIA, it's whatever, MI5, MI6, whatever you call your secret service in your country. So if you're religious, it's the devil, it's demons. If you're non-religious, then it's the deep state. If you don't believe in the deep state, then they'll tell you it's aliens, because they would rather have you believe it's a negative thing that's happening to you and you're being brainwashed, when they're actually the negative thing happening to you that's trying to brainwash you. Okay, so Steve said, hi, Leonard, I can read people and I can feel emotions. Sometimes it's too much info that I wish that I didn't know. That does happen. Let me put that up on the screen. That does happen when you're an empath. Sometimes you get more. That's why we tell you. That's why that saying is there. Be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. Sometimes that is a little too much. It's a little icky when you take on some of the people's stuff. So you have to learn how to shut out the parts that you don't want and only look at the parts that you do. Psychics, hypnotists, when dealing with people, but those of us that are psychic also train people this way. That's why I jumped ahead of what I was saying. Hypnotists, when they're regressing you to remember a trauma or a memory of something, especially during like UFO abductions and things from people, but traumas, as well. Rapes and molestation, car accidents, anything that has caused you a trauma, gunshots, PTSD and that sort of stuff. Or they just call it PTS now because they don't want to have the negative connotation of a disorder. So, the traumas in your life, when they regress you, they basically veil you. They actually veil you from it. And they tell you that, and they use a veil or a curtain, and they tell you that you can see through it, but it's not affecting you. It's like watching a movie and there is no emotion attached to it, detached from the emotion. You can compartmentalize that same thing. I had to do that when I was a boy. My father realized that I was getting everybody's thoughts and getting all the information all at once. And people would say, what's that like? And I was like, it's crazy. Imagine being in a stadium full of people at a whatever soccer game, football game, whatever you want to say, 70,000 people, and have all of them screaming, and they're not screaming the same thing. They're not screaming yay touchdown or yay home run or yay goal. They're not screaming that. They're all screaming their entire life story at you at the exact same time. And you hear all of them talking, and all of that happening at once. And I had that ability, and I had to learn to go shh and focus on one person to see what was going on. So I had to learn to quiet that because it was too much. I was taking on their emotion. I was feeling their emotion. I still do it sometimes now, where I'll look at someone and I'll pick up their emotion. And before I can quiet their emotion, if they have a large emotion attached to it, and I've done that. Anybody who's worked with me knows that. And all of a sudden I'll get emotional. And I'll have to stop myself and then push the emotion away and then write my own course and allow that emotion to leave me and then go back to it. So if you're not ready for it, it can happen. So you have to learn how to keep that away from you and silence it or quiet it a little bit when you're and if you haven't figured it out yet, I could probably work with you, Steve, and help you with that. It's just, you have to just veil that portion and silence that, turn the volume down on the emotion so you don't get caught up in their emotion when you're, or turn the, figure out which one that you want to read and then go from there and read that. Yeah, right. So Penny said, if you don't want so much info, you can ask to be given what's needed, right? Penny, good call, right? That way you tone down the other stuff that you don't want. So you can only get what you want from that reading, and you don't have to worry about that, right? Joanne said yesterday, yesterday I picked up on a recipient's feelings of feeling raunchy. Laugh out loud. Yeah, right. Sometimes you can do that, and you can look at somebody and go, "Wow, that was randy," right? Yeah, you can catch that stuff too. When people are going down that kind of road, it's kind of funny when people do that, right? That's funny, Joanne. I could see that you were doing that. I could see you doing that because you have. I know you have those abilities, so I could see you going, "Whoo! Didn't need to have that. That was TMI, right? Too much information right there." So you have to look at that stuff, right? Yeah, right, Steve. So yeah, I can work with you at some point. We'll have to set something up to where we can talk, and then I can help you to squelch that down so that you don't get too much emotion. And when you're looking at the future, we tell people this. Yoda said it. Looking at the future is mostly emotion. So when you're telling the future to somebody, even looking into their own life, and you're looking into the future, you have to realize that you're looking at the most probable outcome. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be. And most psychics will just tell you that anyways, because them telling you that, the act of them telling you that is usually closer to what you want to hear anyway, and that's closer where you're already going. So when they tell you that, they're not really changing your future. They're just sort of giving you permission to have that future that you're already looking at yourself. You just don't know it. So most psychics won't tell you that up front, that most of future is almost 100% emotion, and it's the higher emotion, because it's the most probable outcome, will be determined. So when you are looking at somebody trying to read them, you're going to get emotion, and if you're susceptible because you're an empath, those emotions will start to affect you. So you have to turn the emotion down just enough to where they don't affect you, but you can still read them. So you just have to be aware of that when you're going into it, so that you can do that. Rich Anderson, seriously, Joanne, seriously, yeah, that does happen, right? So it does happen. That's hilarious, right there. It truly is funny. Truly is funny when you do that. I mean, if it's their Randy, it's funny. If they're not and they're evil, you have to be careful of that. And they show you that in movies, to where you see sometimes where the good guy notices the bad guy being evil, and they look, and at the same time they both know that they know, and it's I know that you know that I know, and the evil guy looks at them and then gets that evil grin and then comes after them because now you know that I am evil, and you found me out. That does happen sometimes. They kind of show you that in movies, but they don't really tell you what's actually going on there. So then in part of that investigation, when you're working with psychic abilities, is the ability to mask your psychic ability to see them as evil and not trigger their sense of psychic abilities to see you seeing them. And that becomes a little more difficult. But there is training for that. If you're in spycraft, you learn that training or teach it, which I did both for that purpose. I did both of literally learning it and teaching it. I was teaching it to people on how to hide and perceive that, to look at a person, because that, like there was like a movie, it was called Equilibrium. And in that movie of Equilibrium, they had young psychics who would sit with guards, and because they were trying to stifle, it was a great movie. They were trying to stifle everyone's emotions, and you had to take a shot every day to lose your emotions. They did the same thing with The Giver, where they had no emotions as well and no memory of emotions or colors or anything like that. But in that movie, they didn't have psychics that would watch you, that had a computer AI that would watch you. But in the movie Equilibrium, you would have psychics standing there, and they would be watching people in a crowd, and they would just look at everybody. And if somebody was having emotional thoughts, they could go that one, and they would grab them, and they would end up taking them in and processing them and giving them a shot to get rid of their emotions, because the society was existing in futuristic England. The world had blamed all of our emotions on the catastrophe that was the world, and when they took the emotions away from everybody, and everybody wore the same colors, and so you wore gray and black, and that was it. And there were you couldn't read books, you couldn't listen to music, you couldn't do any of that stuff. It was illegal. And not having any emotions made the society work properly, but they were, of course, using it to control people. You'd have to see the movie. It was a good movie. So now I'm looking at you guys' conversation here and trying to see what you guys are saying. Yeah. Learning to recognize it, it's your energy, and others is difficult at first. Yeah, right. Practice to separate, Cassie says, practice to separate your emotions / feelings and when it's someone else's. And you have to look at, so truly you have to, and I tell people this, when you're learning to have abilities to read and get information coming in from your guides, your higher self, from other people's guides or loved ones that have passed on, I tell people to specifically do exactly what Cassie was talking about. Pay attention to the energy that's coming into you, where it's coming from, whether it's right side, left side, and whether it's positive or negative or positive, right side being more positive. And then you realize that they have a signature, like a fingerprint. They do have a signature, even though it's a psychic energy. There is a distinct voice to it. There is a distinct personality to it. So there is a thumbprint. There is a fingerprint from each entity. Even if they're trying to hide and pretend they're someone else, they can't, because there is a telling portion of it that is not. And they kind of show you that in movies where somebody takes on the guise of someone else in someone's dream, but they don't sound right, they don't talk right, they don't act right, and the person, even in the dream that's unconscious or under a drug-induced state where the bad guys are trying to get information from them and they have them believing that they're somebody else, they know something's wrong. They know that there's something wrong with the memory they have of that person, but they can't point their finger at it right away. And in movies, they do that for drama to make it harder for them to figure it out. But in real life, if you're paying attention and learn a person's signature, then you will actually get to understand who they are, feel their energy, hear their voice. What do they feel like? What do they sound like when they're talking? What is their cadence, even in the physical? Then it's good to do that, because once you learn a person's vibration and their energy, someone else can't pretend to be them, because you know that. So when you learn who your guides are and you put a name to that, or you put a personality to that, you'll always know who that is because you recognize that person. And so the same thing happens on a psychic level at every level. So when you're looking at somebody who's trying to be evil and trying to hide, I've done that to where I just told the story to somebody not too long ago. When I was married to my first wife, we were at a stoplight. I was going to turn left, and I was the second or third car back from the turn lane. I think it was the first car, actually. I was in the turn lane, and I was sitting there at the light, and this guy, a homeless guy, was walking across the street in the middle of the street. And everybody was sort of stopped at this point and honking at him, and he was talking to himself, and he had long hair and a beard, and he was just going on, and he looked really angry. And at first I just kind of looked up, and it was just a homeless guy. And I was like, who's this homeless guy walking down the street, And I was watching him, and then he looked towards me. And the second that he did, I looked at him and went, oh, wow. Okay. And my ex-wife was sitting there, wife at the time, and she goes, what? And I said, that man is possessed. There is a demon inside that man right now. And he looked at me, and when we made eye contact, he turned and started walking directly towards me. And she goes, he's coming over here. I said, yes, he is, because he knows me and I know him. And he comes walking over, and he's looking right at my eyes the entire time. And he's still talking to himself angrily, but he's walking straight towards me, ignoring everyone else. He walks right over, and I roll my window down, and I look out, and he walks over, and he leans in, and he says, hello, Kelto. I know you. I said, how you doing there, pal? I said, what are you doing inside there? And this is a true story. You could ask my ex-wife. If she were here, she would tell you this. What are you doing inside there? She says, he says, you can't do anything about this. This is mine. I said, no, it's not yours. I said, you need to get out of there, and you need to leave that man alone, or I'm going to have to do something about that. And he says, well, I don't know about that, but I'm not going to stick around here to find out. It was good to see you, pal. I said, yeah, I'll be seeing you soon. And he says, I'll be seeing you soon. And then he turned and he was walking away. And she said, do you know who that was? I said, yeah, he's a sub-demon. He's not a nice person. And somehow he's actually possessed that guy, and he's wreaking havoc on his soul right now. And we may have to do something about that. And he flipped me off. He knew what I was saying. He flipped me off, looked back at me and flipped me off. And he started laughing, and then he walked off. And she says, he knew who you were. And it was like, yeah, he knows me. We've had a run-in before. Not in this lifetime. We've had a run-in before. I haven't seen that one for probably about 300 years, weirdly. And everybody's looking at me and going, what the hell was that about? People around could hear that. And they were like, what do you mean he knew you? And I was like, I never saw that guy before in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. And light turned green, and I drove off. But true story, okay? True story. He was able to see in my eyes and see who I am, recognized my higher self name, Kelto, not my human name, knew me, said to me, hi, Kelto, right? And I knew who he was, and I'm not going to say his name. I knew who he was. I ended up deporting him later, just so you guys know. I didn't leave him in that guy. I ended up deporting him. But then we had another run-in at another time, and I had to end up deporting him again. So, and when I talk about deporting, that's literally removing an entity from this earth and moving them back whence they came. Okay? So in your guys' mind, I sent him back to hell. I deported him to hell twice. He might be back now, but he's staying away from me. Came back a second time mad at me because I deported him the first time, and I had to deport him again. Okay, so whether you believe that or not doesn't really matter to me. Let's continue with the law of one. Yeah, whether you believe that story was true or not is inconsequential to the facts. Here we go.
One which occurs with full knowledge of the veiling process which has taken place in third density. This veiling process is that which is a portion of the third density experience. The knowledge.
Wait, I got to answer another question. Denise said, did you ever look into someone's eyes and feel scared because something was off? No, not in this lifetime, because of being unveiled. When I look in someone's lives, even if they're in their eyes, even if there's a demon in there, I don't get scared of them because I'm not afraid of them, and you shouldn't be either. But they do look at me with a lot of hatred in their eyes, even people that are just psychotic. Yeah, I mean, evil serial killers and murderers. Look, that's why I was going to be a profiler. I was going to go to the FBI and be a profiler when I was in my early 20s. But back then, you couldn't have any tattoos. Now they wouldn't be able to hire anybody in the FBI if they said no tattoos. But back then, they were a little more stringent with that. And I already had like 5 tattoos by the time I was 21. So they didn't want me to go to work for them. But I was going to be a profiler for the FBI at that time. And I wanted to do that because I wanted the experience, because I already had psychic abilities. The guy who was teaching the classes had psychic abilities, and he's very famous. Most of the movies that you hear of, like including Red Dragon and the one after that, Silence of the Lambs, were written about him. It wasn't a female; it was a male. It was a man who was that character that you see in those 2 books. In Red Dragon, it was a man, but I think when they made the movie, they made it a woman. But when they made the first movie out of it, it wasn't called Red Dragon. It was called Manhunter. It was a man. It was more close to the reality of the actual person who was a profiler that was hunting that serial killer. That was a real serial killer in real life. So was Hannibal Lecter, by the way. And then they did Millennial, the television series, and 3 other television series that were also based on that person who used to teach the class on profiling in the FBI at Quantico. And I was studying under him, wanted to go into his class and studying all about him back then, because in the 80s, because I would have been, it was before Millennium came out for the TV series, because we were getting up to 1999, and that was about the same person. And there was another one. There was 2 more that were about women profilers in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't remember the names of them, but they were actually very good as well. They were all based on the same person. He had psychic abilities, empathic abilities, and the like. And in the movie Manhunter, you saw that more than you did in the movie Red Dragon, from the book Red Dragon. You saw it more in Manhunter. The guy, I can't think of his name right now, but he was in CSI Vegas. And then in the new series that they did just a few years ago, he was in the first 6 episodes to help kick off the show. He was the Manhunter, really good actor, and I can't think of his name right now. But in that, they showed that he had psychic abilities, and that he was able to, they're doing it now with Will Trent, but they haven't told you their psychic abilities, and I don't know if they're going to work that into the plot. But if you see the TV show Will Trent, it's done in the same style as Manhunter, the movie, where Will Trent, who is CBI or GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, like FBI, but in the state of Georgia. He's a GBI investigator and investigating murders and all this stuff. When he's at a scene and he's investigating it, you'll see him relive the actual event that's happening. That's the same thing that the guy in Manhunter did and the guy in real life did, to where he would relive it. He would start seeing things in the minds, and he would make a mental connection to the killer himself, and he would see things through their eyes in real time. And then there was a cat and mouse game that went on with them, and he was a profiler and he was teaching that. Right. And then Brooke said, I don't get scared. I do get cautious and increase awareness until I get better at protecting myself and keeping the energy away. I won't approach or engage in conversation if I have no choice. They see who I am and they back away. And truly. And even then, and this is what I will work with you with, and I would tell you that, and that's why I love that Brooke said that. If you have the ability, usually if you have the ability to see that in people, you don't realize that you do have the ability to defeat them. If you can identify a thing, you can defeat a thing. So if you have this, you shouldn't be, and I train people this, looking for ghosts and the like. I'm working with ghost hunters and the psychics that work with them. I train them, and I have for years trained them to tell them, look, you need to realize that they're dead. They don't have the power that you have. You're alive and you're embodied. You have more power than they do. So you need to walk in with the mindset of, I'm a badass. I'm not afraid of these people, because you're not. If you're in service, you shouldn't be. Because if you're in service to others, you can literally hold off a whole entire armada. And so I'll quickly go to people and ask them, have you ever had that dream where you were in that world where there was magic and fighting and you were standing with 5 or 6 other people, and there was this whole horde of evil people coming, and one person would step forward and they would hold off all these people with their energy who were trying to attack, and then eventually they would collapse, and then when they collapsed, the horde also collapsed and ran away, and then you would go and get them, and one other person would stand while everybody healed that person, and that person stood and waited for them to come again, and when they did, they couldn't get past them. Everyone who has that dream, I tell them that's a real place. You're actually going there and you're actually doing that, or you wouldn't have that dream. So the fact that you're having that dream, you don't realize that that's not a dream. That's an actual place that you're going, and you're actually doing that. And it's happening when you're asleep. You're leaving your body and you're going and you're doing that. And there's only 7 of you that stand at one time. And one person stands out of the 7, and the other 6 support that one person. And one person is able to hold off the entire horde armada, the whole entire people by one person. So I show you that from your dream, and then I tell you that you can do the same here. You should never be afraid of those people, and then you can keep them from seeing you if you learn how to do that. So you have to realize that those things and realize those about yourself. And Brooke is smart for saying, until I realize more of my own abilities, then I don't engage them, but I see them, and then I keep them at bay. But she doesn't engage in a fight of any kind, because usually what they want you to do is physically get into a confrontation with them, because physicality is their wheelhouse, and evil always wants you to stay in the physical and never stay in the mental or never stay in the spiritual. They want you to engage them in the physical, because then they can damage your body, control your body, kill your body, do those things to make you recycle. That's why governments, if they're being tyrannical, they want to goat you into a physical war against them, because they know they have the advantage of having all the money and all the troops and all of the technology. They don't want you doing it in a spiritual way. They want you to do it in a physical way, so that they can justify killing you and making your spirit check out and recycle. So that that problem, who is you, is now it now has to recycle and be born again to come back down here. And when you're born again, you're going to be a baby, and it's going to be another 20 or 30 years before you're going to be willing and ready to fight again. So they want you to do that. Evil always wants you to fight them in the physical and not in the spiritual, because they can't defeat you in the spiritual. And if they can goat you into fighting in the spiritual, they can defeat you. Or fighting you in the physical, then they can defeat you. So that's why we tell you you need to fight them in the astral plane, always in the non-physical. That's why Mahatma Gandhi was teaching that and defeated the entire British government, the entire United Kingdom, because they just said no, and they did not fight them. So they couldn't justify murdering them without. If they did, then the people would turn against them. All of the people would turn against them and realign against them, and they were aware of that. And that happened when someone got stupid enough to walk up and shoot him in the heart. Mahatma Gandhi killed him, and all the rest of the country sat down and said no. And England eventually left, because they couldn't do anything with them. They couldn't. Now it was, we have to beat them all into submission, and they're all turning against us, and soon they're going to revolt, and they have us outnumbered, like 400 to 1. They tried that with the Zulus, and the Zulus had them outnumbered and eventually killed them. So the same thing happened, and I talked about this last week with Leonidas in the 300, when they were fighting against Xerxes, who had like 1 million people in his army, and they only had 300 hoplites and about 10,000 or less. At that time, I think they only had about 1,000, 300 plus 1,000 Athenians. And when they sent an emissary to talk, and it turned out that it was actually Xerxes who came to talk to Leonidas, they said, there's an emissary coming, and Leonidas said, I should go and talk to him. And his general said, sir, if you go there, they're going to kill you. And they're going to capture you and they're going to kill you. Leonidas' response was, pray that they're that stupid. Pray that we get that lucky. Because he knew if they killed the king, all of the hoplites, all of Sparta would turn against them, and probably all of Greece. That's exactly what happened. Eventually, they killed Leonidas. Greece, united under one banner, marched on Xerxes and destroyed the army, and then marched on the rest of the world, and the Greeks took over the entire known world at the time because of the Battle of Thermopylae. So evil people are aware of this. Evil governments, tyrannical governments, the evil people that are oligarchs, they're aware of this, and they know that. So To know a thing, to name a thing, is to control a thing. And so it's always good if you know that stuff, right, to pay attention to it, but also don't engage in the physical unless you're aware of their physical prowess and you know as much about them. Cassie said, I once met a man who, that's like sounding like the beginning of a joke, right? I once met a man who I immediately knew half a dark, icky energy, had dark, icky energy. And when I introduced myself to him, my whole body told me that he was evil and that he was icky sexual energy that wasn't an energy I myself needed to worry about. Turns out that he was a convicted child molester of little boys. There you go. So, and you were able to sense that, right? So you have to pay attention to these things, but you also have to be a little bit reserved and not jump into something that'll get you into trouble, or it puts you into a position where someone might physically dominate you and then do damage to you or hurt you, right? So you guys have to be aware of that. So psychic abilities do sometimes come with consequences, and you have to realize to take care of yourself and protect yourself, because they want you in the physical. And if they can dominate you in the physical, they will. And if they think that you know and they think about them, and they think that they can get to you physically without anybody else knowing, they will try to do that, to scare you in some way, or to harm you, or to even capture you and maybe even torture you and kill you, or make you the next victim. So you have to be aware of what you're doing, be aware of your surroundings, and assume, the worst in people if you see that they're evil, right? But don't be afraid of them. The second they sense that you're afraid of them, they're going to use that to pounce. Right? So you can't be afraid of them. You have to allow them to be afraid of you. Note the key words that I used there. You don't make them afraid of you. Allow them to be afraid of you. Because when you're not afraid of them, they will become afraid of you. And if they think they can intimidate you and they're arrogant enough, they will try to intimidate you to make you afraid of them. And if you're not afraid of them, if you're in public, it's harder for them to do it. So they'll just look at you with this evil disdain. And, I've had that happen. I was just talking about that to somebody. I think it was Brooke. I was talking about my buddy Paul, because he had that ability as well. And he was the only other person that I knew that was anywhere near unveiled until just a few years ago. And because the internet helped with that. But when the internet wasn't here, and when it was really small and we didn't have big platforms like these now we do now, it was harder to meet people like that. He and I would go somewhere, we'd be standing online at a store, and he would be looking one way and I'd be looking the other, and we'd just be looking around at people. And, there was a guy one time that was down this way, and he was standing about 3 registers down in line. And I saw him, and I tapped to Paul, and he looked at me, and I pointed, and Paul looked over there, and we both went, yep, that one is evil, EVIL, evil. Right. And so I just looked at him. I looked back at Paul, and we looked at him, and he turned and he looked at us. And the second that he looked at us, he immediately realized that we could see him, and he hated us. Right. And when he did that, I looked at Paul, and Paul looked at me, and we both looked back at the guy, and we both started laughing at the guy for looking at us all evil. And he set his things down and left. Right. He literally put his things down. He hated us, put his things down, and flipped us off and walked out the door with just evil, just hating on us all the way out the door. But he didn't stay, right? So you have to allow them to become afraid of you and let that happen. Okay. Right, Cassie said, now you have us, the Motley Crew, Leo. Yeah, right? You guys aren't really a Motley Crew. We think we're a Motley Crew. We kind of are, in the sense that we all have different personalities, but we've all been doing this. Those of us that have been working together have been working together for many lifetimes. It's just a matter of getting to know people in this lifetime and getting people to unveil themselves in this lifetime, to remember some of who they are or some of what they are, to be able to come into their own in this lifetime. So there's always personality things that we have to get accustomed to. There's always growing pains as we meet each other in each lifetime, unless we meet each other when we're like 2, then we grow up with each other and know a lot about each other. But if not, we still have to learn that. But it is kind of funny, right? All right, let's get back to Raw here.
Knowledge and memory of the outcome of this and all portions of the third density experience informs the higher density polarized entity. It, however, does not influence the choice which has been made and which is the basis for further work past third density in polarization. Those which have chosen the service to others asterisk path have simply used the veiling process in order to potentiate that which is not. This is an entirely acceptable method of self-knowledge of and by the Creator. Asterisk this should be service to self. Don and Ra correct the error later in the session. Question 85.10. Questioner, you just stated that those who are on the service to others path use the veiling process to potentiate that which is not. I believe that I am correct in repeating what you said. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 85.11. Questioner, then the service to others asterisk path has potentiated that which is not. Could you expand that a little bit so that I could understand it a little better? Answer, I am Ra. If you see the energy centers in their various colors completing the spectrum, you may see that the service to others asterisk choice is one which denies the very center of the spectrum, that being universal love. Therefore, all that is built upon the penetration of the light of harvestable quality by such entities is based upon an emission. This emission shall manifest in fourth density as the love of self, that is, the fullest expression of the orange and yellow energy centers, which then are used to potentiate communication and adepthood. When fifth density refinement has been achieved, that which is not is carried further, the wisdom density being explored by entities which have no compassion, no universal love. They experience that which they wish by free choice, being of the earnest opinion that green ray energy is folly. That which is not may be seen as a self-imposed darkness in which harmony is turned into an eternal disharmony. However, that which is not cannot endure throughout the octave of third density, and, as darkness eventually calls the light, so does that which is not eventually call that which is. Asterisk this should be service to self. Don and Ra correct the error later in the session. Question 85.12. Questioner, I believe that there were salient errors in the communication that we just completed because of transmission difficulties. Are you aware of these errors? Answer, I am Ra. We are unaware of errors, although this instrument is experiencing flares of pain, as you call this distortion. We welcome and encourage your perceptions in correcting any errors in transmission.
Okay, so now that's the end of part 1 of 2.
This is the aircraft carrier shelter you seized,
I was telling you about.
previously owned by a
Just
small
have to wait for
faction
it
of
to
about
time out and skip it. There we go. And then hit no on there. Part 2, April 26th.
Question 85.13. Questioner, I think that the statement that was made when we were speaking about the service to others path was incorrect. Would you check that, please? Answer, I am Ra. May we ask that you be apprised of our intention to have spoken of the service to self path as the path of that which is not. Question 85.14. Questioner, I am interested in the problem that we sometimes have with the transmission, since the word others was used 3 times in this transmission rather than the word self. Could you give me an idea of this problem which could create a discrepancy in communication? Answer, I am Ra. Firstly, we may note the clumsiness of language and our unfamiliarity with it in our native, shall we say, experience. Secondly, we may point out that once we have miscalled or misnumbered an event or thing, that referent is quite likely to be reused for some transmission time, as you call this measurement, due to our original error having gone undetected by ourselves. Question 85.15. Questioner, thank you. Do you have use of all the words in the English language and, for that matter, all of the words in all of the languages that are spoken on this planet at this time? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 85.16. Questioner, I have a question here from name. It states, as we see compassion developing in ourselves, is it more appropriate to balance this compassion with wisdom, or to allow the compassion to develop as much as possible without being balanced? Answer, I am Ra. This query borders upon that type of question to which answers are unavailable due to the free will prohibitions upon information from teach learners. To the student of the balancing process, we may suggest that the most stringent honesty be applied. As compassion is perceived, it is suggested that, in balancing, this perception be analyzed. It may take many, many essays into compassion before true universal love is the product of the attempted opening and crystallization of this all-important springboard energy center. Thus the student may discover many other components to what may seem to be all-embracing love. Each of these components may be balanced and accepted as part of the self and as transitional material as the entity's seat of learned teaching moves ever more clearly into the green ray. When it is perceived that universal love has been achieved, the next balancing may or may not be wisdom. If the adept is balancing manifestations, it is indeed appropriate to balance universal love and wisdom. If the balancing is of mind or spirit, there are many subtleties to which the adept may give careful consideration. Love and wisdom, like love and light, are not black and white, shall we say, but faces of the same coin, if you will. Therefore, it is not, in all cases, that balancing consists of a movement from compassion to wisdom. We may suggest at all times the constant remembrance of the density from which each adept desires to move. This density learns the lessons of love. In the case of wanderers, there are half-forgotten overlays of other lessons and other densities. We shall leave these considerations with the questioner and invite observations which we shall then be the most happy to respond to in what may seem to be a more effectual manner.
Right. So you have to realize that, right? So especially that last part, this density learns the lesson of love in the case of wanderers, where there are half-forgotten overlays of other lessons in other densities. Okay, so you have to realize that happens with people in general. And I talked about this, I think, on Wednesday or last Wednesday, maybe. I talked about that where you have when you learn something. I think it was on Wednesday when we were doing the Q&A on Wednesday, where when you're learning things, and if you go through a life and you learn something, does it carry over? It does carry over into your next life. And if you don't learn it in this life, when you set that down for yourself, you will have that scenario come up again in some ways in your next life, so that you will learn it. But the things that you do learn carry over in each life, for wanderers more specifically, because you're going to be more enlightened and more awake than regular people are, unless they're in a position of being, piercing the veil in their last lifetimes, or if they did that and they're stuck on a planet like this is, where you have some people who will become unveiled and then realize that they're stuck and then return, but they also know that when they're going to be returning, that they're going to be revealed again, unless they design their lives to be unveiled. But it's not as easy as you think to design a life to be unveiled. So consecutive lifetimes trying to be unveiled is a little harder. So it's easier to wake yourself up, because the more you become unveiled at birth, the more the matrix tends to want you to graduate. So it kind of starts trying to kick you out of the nest, so to speak. So you don't want to be unveiled too many times, because then the planet doesn't understand why you're still here, because the planet's not self-aware. It's just as a function, like your body just has a function. It's not self-aware. It's aware of itself, but not self-aware. Okay, the body's job is to be the body, so it's aware of the body because it's supposed to be aware of the body. So the body knows when there's pain in a certain limb, and the body knows when the limb is missing. The body knows when there's damage. The body knows when it's hungry. The body knows when it's not breathing or when it's breathing, but it's not self-aware. The planet is not self-aware, but the planet has a personality, and the planet has a function to be the function, and to have all of the life forms on it as part of its function, because everything is part of the planet itself, part of the sphere. So we are too, while being on it. And so when we become unveiled too long, it's like, you're not supposed to be here anymore. What's going on? So you design your lives so that you unveil quicker, or at the certain times that you decide, and then you can balance that stuff out. It's a weird matrix that is here, and it's a weird thing. It's designed with safeguards to keep things a certain way, to keep balances, but then it's also allows for people to do stuff like this to get places stuck. It's just kind of the way it is. So it's It's really intricate. It's far more intricate than anything that we would design down here. All right, I'm again trying to start it without putting it back up on the screen here. Let's continue here.
Question 85.17. Questioner, what changes or functions of the mind, body, spirits were most effective in producing the evolution desired due to the veiling process? Answer, I am Ra. We are having difficulty retaining clear channel through this instrument. It is a safe margin of transferred energy but is experiencing pain flares. May we ask that you repeat the query as we have better channel now? Question 85.18. Questioner, after the veiling process certain veiled functions or activities must have been paramount in creating evolution in the desired polarized directions. I was just wondering which of these had the greatest effect on polarization? Answer, I am Ra. The most effectual veiling was that of the mind. Question 85.19. Questioner, I would like to carry that on to find out what specific functions of the mind that were most effectual and the 3 or 4 most effective changes brought about to create the polarization. Answer, I am Ra. This is an interesting query. The primary veiling was of such significance that it may be seen to be analogous to the mantling of the earth over all the jewels within the earth's crust, whereas previously all facets of the Creator were consciously known. After the veiling, almost no facets of the Creator were known to the mind. Almost all was buried beneath the veil. If one were to attempt to list those functions of mind most significant in that they might be obeyed in polarization, one would need to begin with the faculty of visioning, envisioning, or far-seeing. Without the veil the mind was not caught in your illusory time. With the veil space-time is the only obvious possibility for experience. Also upon the list of significant veiled functions of the mind would be that of dreaming. The so-called dreaming contains a great deal which, if made available to the conscious mind and used, shall aid it in polarization to a great extent. The third function of the mind which is significant and which has been veiled is that of the knowing of the body. The knowledge of and control over the body, having been lost to a great extent in the veiling process, is thusly lost from the experience of the seeker. Its knowledge before the veiling is of small use. Its knowledge after the veiling, and in the face of what is now a dense illusion of separation of body complex from mind complex, is quite significant.
Right. So that's very significant if you're paying attention to you always hear people say get to know yourself, get to know your body. If you are in either side, in service to self or in service to others, and you start ascending on either one of those sides, learning about yourself and learning about the body is important. So these are the things that we teach, like say with meditation or even prayer, and people tend to not explain why breathing techniques are important, why thought techniques are important, why these things, the congruency of these things is important, along with balancing your chakras, eating right, sleeping right, exercising right, doing all of these things together to set the tone, the right smells, the right scent, the right incense, the right mood, the right attitude, in outlook, like Brooke was saying before, where in the chat where she was saying, I am awake, the veil is pierced daily. I'm doing this. You hear people out there saying, well, you're not supposed to say I am, because I am means is a form of negative thought. And those are people that are trying to lie to you and trying to get you to not say that you are something. Right. And so they're trying to confuse you. And so you hear people saying that, and they're buying into that weird logic of even saying I am is bad for you. And how is that? And I always try to talk to those people, but how is that bad for you? Because the Hebrew Bible, when God was at the burning bush talking to Moses, and Moses said, who shall I say sent me, Lord? I don't know your name. He said, tell them I am sent you, because I am that I am. So the consciousness that was the God speaking to him through the burning bush, saying, I am, because I am. So So then people are now telling you that that is evil, in fact, and they're trying to tell you that God is in fact the devil, and it's the other way around. So they're literally trying to flip anything. First, they're saying all religion is fake and it's made up, it's not real. Then, if you don't buy into that, then trying to convince you that every religion on the earth was created by aliens. The same people who would tell you there are no such thing as aliens, by the way, when you don't buy into their words and that you buy into a God, they would rather have you believe in aliens than believe in a God. So the very people who tell you that the churches are fake and there is no God will then, if you ignore that, will then tell you it's the devil. Nope, not that, because you don't believe in that. It's an alien. It's telling. So first they say religions are fake. Then if you believe in the religion, they try to morph the religion to tell you that it's the devil that tells you anything. Well, it can't be the devil that was talking to Moses, but they would rather you believe that it was aliens. And so they're like, it was the Anunnaki, and that the Anunnaki wrote all the religions, and that it was all done to control you. They keep pushing you back. The theme is push you back to the here and now and get you to believe that there is nothing. And oh, by the way, you're a slave. Okay. The human race was created by some aliens who came down and seeded our human existence. And that's what they want you to believe. And that's what they're trying to do to get you to not look in the spiritual sense, to not look at spirituality. They want you doing anything but that. So they'll if you believe in the religion itself, it's the devil and a demon that is teaching you spirituality that the church is not teaching you, because the church is teaching you physicality. Churches, none of them are teaching you spirituality. They're teaching you physicality. You are a person and God is up there. You're trying to get there to God, but you're not there. You're down here and you're trying to get to God and come to our church down here. And that's the only way you can get to God, is to sit in our church and give us some of your money, and we'll get you to God. Okay? So it's all in the physical. And then if you don't believe in the churches, they're like, yeah, it's because they're fake anyway, when they were designed by people to control you. Yeah. So those very people are then going to try and control you. No, I don't believe you because I think you're trying to control me. Well, that's because that was an alien anyway. Now the same people who tell you that aliens don't exist, the secularists who think they own this planet, will all of a sudden tell you that aliens exist if you don't believe that they're in charge of the world. Well, then there's these big bad aliens that the church isn't telling you about, because it's actually what the church is all about, is about those aliens. So they'll switch they'll flip the switch. They'll switch the flip, as what's his name would have said, Marvin in Red, as Marvin would say. They'll switch the flip on that for you. Got to love that. Okay, let's continue here. So you have to realize that you have to note the difference in what's going on, and realize the energy potential of everything, and to get to know your own body and know your own self. Because if you don't, then you'll be outside influenced by these outside influencers, and to be just in this place. So that's because even evil people, my point, but getting back on point with Ra, even evil people realize that getting to know oneself is in your body. You can change things about that. I would go into the doctor's office, and I would just be full of caffeine and out driving in the world with all kinds of chaos. I would come in, and sometimes you don't end up sitting. They usually try to leave you in the lobby there after you check in for a few minutes to calm you down. So say all that happens and I go straight in and my blood pressure is kind of high. They're like, well, you got to sit here because your blood pressure is high. I'm like, hold on a second. And I'll literally just start breathing, and I'll put myself in a meditative state. And then I'll tell my body, calm down, lower the heart rate, lower the blood pressure, lower the respiratory rate, slow down. And I do it like in 3 to 5 seconds. And I'll go, hold on a second. I'll just go, look at the nurse, take a third breath, do it again. And she's like, well, it's not going to happen that fast. Do it again. If it doesn't, I sit here. Okay. And they turn it on the machine, and they're like, now your blood pressure is normal. Wow. How did you do that? And I'm like, magic. And they're like, no, breathing technique. And I'm in control of my body. I told my body to slow down, took deep breaths. So my body felt relaxed, told my body to relax, told my respiratory rate, relax, told my heart, relax. In that 3 seconds, told my body to stop, slow down, relax, reset. And it did. Anyone can do that. But you have to be at a high enough level to realize you have that ability to then tap into your own body. You can also at that point start tapping into other people's bodies and help them with that. But you have to become self-aware and become your own advocate and control your own body. Then you can heal yourself. You can do a lot of other things. And Ra is stating that right here. Let's continue.
Perhaps the most important and significant function that occurred due to the veiling of the mind from itself is not in itself a function of mind, but rather is a product of the potential created by this veiling. This is the faculty of will or pure desire. We may ask for brief queries at this time. Although there is energy remaining for this working, we are reluctant to continue this contact, experiencing continual variations due to pain flares, as you call this distortion. Although we are unaware of any misgiven material, we are aware that there have been several points during which our channel was less than optimal. This instrument is most faithful, but we do not wish to misuse this instrument. Please query as you will. Question 85.20. Questioner, I will just ask in closing, is an individualized portion or entity of Ra inhabiting the instrument's body for the purpose of communication? Then, is there anything that we could do to improve the contact or to make the instrument more comfortable? Answer, I am Ra. We have Ra communicate through narrowband channel through the violet ray energy center. We are not, as you would say, physically indwelling in this instrument. Rather, the mind, body, spirit complex of this instrument rests with us.
Right. See, you see Cassie put that on there. Leo taught me my heart chakra immediately clearing. That took practice. That it can only take, it says inki, or it can only take seconds. But it was a lifesaver. Yeah, it doesn't take much. You can literally, if you know how to do it, breathing techniques and getting to know your body, you can literally figure that out. Right. Like Brooke said, right, I'm reading this for those people that are on the MP3 broadcast, right? I do a lot of breath work. It helps a lot with pain and discomfort, anxiety, and stress. Absolutely, it does. If you know the proper breath work, when it comes to calming yourself down, you can get through a lot of things, including helping yourself if you're too tired, helping yourself in any instance when you need to calm down for whatever reason because of anxiety or car accident, whatever. You can actually control that. Blood pressure tests and the like. You can change a lot more than just those physical attributes by learning breath techniques, learning meditations, learning these things. It's not just trying to achieve that one place. It's achieving peace in your mind. It's achieving that higher self. And the realization and the moving of yourself and your idea of yourself into that and becoming that, instead of thinking that you are the pain body. This is why we start you with the idea of I am not the thinking mind, I am not the pain body. Those are the two things that hold us back into this place the most. And for us to introduce those two thoughts to you, I am not the thinking mind, I am not the pain body, gets you to start thinking, well, then what am I? Or okay, if I'm not those, what am I? You might even ask that question out loud. You are the higher self. You are the soul. You are the spirit. You are the observer. You are the experiencer. You are not this pain body. You are not the thinking mind. You are not the flesh. You are something that is different from that is higher than that is more than that. And that moves you into that part of thinking. And so then you start associating yourself not with I think, therefore I am, but with I am. The whole I think, therefore I am is actually just saying I'm self-aware in this place because you think that you're the pain body. So then you move away from that to the I am. What am I? Well, I am something other than the pain body and the thinking mind. Then what am I? So if the you in the first person is I, me, I, then why would you not be I am? Because I am a being. I am being. Because I am a being. So that's why when you look at that 25 episodes that I did on online, where it was about the Roswell incident and the alien entity known as Errol that doesn't exist officially, that didn't happen, that did happen. Errol, they referred to the soul as an is-be because the person is being, because it is the beingness. So they referred to the soul as the is-be because it was the act of being. A person is being. Do you see? So they called it an is-be, and we call it a soul or a spirit. But they would call it an is-be, and that was an entire species from a higher plane of existence that referred to it as that. But it meant the same thing. Okay, let's go back over here and continue here.
You are diligent and conscientious. The alignments are excellent. We leave you rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, my friends, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the infinite love and the ineffable light of the one Creator. I am Ra. Adonai.
Okay, so that's the end of this session, which is it where are we at? Session 85? Yes. So that'll end right here. So that was April 26, 1982. We'll go to session 86. In just a second, it should load when this video ends. If it doesn't, then I'll have to load the video itself.
The pineal gland has tiny little cilia, hair-like extensions all around it.
There we go. Okay, so this is session 86, May 4th, 1982.
I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 86.1. Questioner, would you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The instrument's distortion towards physical energy complex deficit has slightly increased since the last asking. The vital energy levels have had significant calls upon them and are somewhat less than the last asking also. Question 86.2. Questioner, what was the nature of the significant calls upon the vital energy? Answer, I am Ra. There are those entities which entertain the thought distortion towards this entity that it shall remove for the other selves all distortions for the other self. This entity has recently been in close contact with a larger than normal number of entities with these thought complex distortions. This entity is of the distortion to provide whatever service is possible and is not consciously aware of the inroads made upon the vital energies. Question 86.3. Questioner, am I correct in assuming that you are speaking of incarnate third density entities that were creating the condition of the use of the vital energy? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 86.4. Questioner, what is the present situation with our fifth density service to self-polarized companion? Answer, I am Ra. The period which you may call crisis remains. Question 86.5. Questioner, can you tell me anything of the nature of this crisis? Answer, I am Ra. The polarity of your companion is approaching the critical point at which the entity shall choose either to retreat for the nonce and leave any greetings to fourth density minions or lose polarity. The only other potential is that in some way this group might lose polarity, in which case your companion could continue its form of greeting. Question 86.6. Questioner, in the last session you had mentioned the properties precipitating from the veiling of the mind, the first being envisioning or far-seeing. Would you explain the meaning of that? Answer, I am Ra. Your language is not overstrewn with non-emotional terms for the functional qualities of what is now termed unconscious mind. The nature of mind is something which we have requested that you ponder. However, it is, shall we say, clear enough to the casual observer that we may share some thoughts with you without infringing upon your free-learned teaching experiences. The nature of the unconscious is of the nature of concept rather than word. Consequently, before the veiling the use of the deeper mind was that of the use of unspoken concept. You may consider the emotive and connotative aspects of a melody. One could call out, in some stylized fashion, the terms for the notes of the melody. One could say, quarter note A, quarter note A, quarter note A, whole note F. This bears little resemblance to the beginning of the melody of one of your composer's most influential melodies, that known to you as a symbol of victory. This is the nature of the deeper mind. They are only stylized methods with which to discuss its functions. Thusly, our descriptions of this portion of the mind, as well as the same portions of body and spirit, were given terms such as far-seeing, indicating that the nature of penetration of the veiled portion of the mind may be likened unto the journey too rich and exotic to contemplate adequate describing thereof. Question 86.7. Questioner: you have stated that dreaming, if made available to the conscious mind, will aid greatly in polarization. Could you define dreaming or tell us what it is and how it aids polarization? Answer: I am Ra. Dreaming is an activity of communication through the veil of the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. The nature of this activity is wholly dependent upon the situation regarding the energy center blockages, activations, and crystallizations of a given mind, body, spirit complex. In one who is blocked at 2 of the 3 lower energy centers, dreaming will be of value in the polarization process, in that there will be a repetition of those portions of recent catalysts as well as deeper held blockages, thereby giving the waking mind clues as to the nature of these blockages and hints as to possible changes in perception which may lead to the unblocking. This type of dreaming or communication through the veiled portions of the mind occurs also with those mind, body, spirit complexes which are functioning with far less blockage and enjoying the green ray activation or higher activation at those times at which the mind, body, spirit complex experiences catalyst, momentarily blocking or baffling or otherwise distorting the flow of energy influx. Therefore, in all cases it is useful to a mind, body, spirit complex to ponder the content and emotive resonance of dreams. For those whose green ray energy centers have been activated, as well as for those whose green ray energy centers are offered an unusual unblockage due to extreme catalyst, such as what is termed the physical death of the self, or one which is beloved occurring in what you may call your near future, dreaming takes on another activity. This is what may loosely be termed precognition, or a knowing which is prior to that which shall occur in physical manifestation in your yellow ray third density space-time. This property of the mind depends upon its placement, to a great extent, in time-space, so that the terms of present and future and past have no meaning. This will, if made proper use of by the mind, body, spirit complex, enable this entity to enter more fully into the all-compassionate love of each and every circumstance, including those circumstances against which an entity may have a strong distortion towards what you may call unhappiness. As a mind, body, spirit complex consciously chooses the path of the adept and, with each energy balanced to a minimal degree, begins to open the indigo ray energy center, the so-called dreaming becomes the most efficient tool for polarization. For, if it is known by the adept that work may be done in consciousness while the so-called conscious mind rests, this adept may call upon those which guide it, those presences which surround it, and, most of all, the magical personality which is the higher self in space-time analog as it moves into the sleeping mode of consciousness. With these affirmations attended to, the activity of dreaming reaches the potential of learned teaching which is most helpful to increasing the distortions of the adept towards its chosen polarity. There are other possibilities of the dreaming not so closely aligned with the increase in polarity which we do not cover at this particular space-time.
Right. So you have to realize this is why I talk about the dreaming and the different states. Let me pull myself up into the screen here. This is why I talk about the different states of consciousness the way I do. Listen to what Ra just said there. Literally, you have to realize that all aspects of you is a dream. This place right now, this reality that you think is a reality is no different than a dream. The only thing, and this is what we talk about all the time, to get you to understand what's happening in the universe itself, to you and to all this place, to give you perspective of that as you are getting nearer to becoming unveiled, this is why I go down that road all the time and tell people that the first thing in learning, if you have shamanistic training or if you have dream walking training or astral projection training at all, to become comfortable with the self in those places, we take you through a progression to where we talk to you about your night dreams when you're asleep and you're dreaming. First teaching you to how to get control in your dreams, and when you doubt that, then we point out to you that when you do it as a daydream, when you're daydreaming, you realize that there is no difference. And you will start to realize that when you're daydreaming, there is no difference between a daydream and a night dream. The difference of the daydream is that you're cognitive in there, because your perception, you're not in the subconscious and the conscious mind blending together, because that's what happens with the dream. You're in the conscious mind instead of going to sleep and moving into the subconscious and having the blending of the subconscious and the conscious together, and you not being aware of it until you start to realize, oh, I'm in a dream. As a daydream, you're actually going to that place as you're awake, and you're doing the same function there in that place while you're awake as you do when you're subconscious, when you're doing it when you're asleep. The difference is you're conscious going into it instead of becoming aware of yourself while in it. You're conscious while being in it, and so you feel comfortable because you're in control of it, and you don't have a nightmare in your daydream. You have nightmares in your night dream because your subconscious is speaking to you in metaphors. When you're having the same function happen to you in a daydream, you're in control of it because you're in two places at once and you're aware of that, you're self-aware. So you don't think to yourself, oh, I'm daydreaming. Sometimes you do that, though. Sometimes you're sitting there, you're not paying attention, you start daydreaming, and you go, wow, I was daydreaming, and you stop. Or somebody gets your attention because they can see in your eyes that you're daydreaming. But it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing. There is no REM happening when you're doing that because you're fully in the conscious. But if you are subconscious, then in your subconscious asleep, you would have REM going on with your eyes, rapid eye movement. So you don't have that, and so it's happening. But you don't realize that when you're daydreaming, it's happening faster than you realize that it's happening. But it doesn't happen as fast as the subconscious, only because in the subconscious you're not conscious in this place. You're outside of time. So in a dream, it happens instantaneously, and you could be dreaming for 4 hours in your dream, and it could be 1 second in reality in this place. So once you learn those parallels and that you have the same control in those two places, then you can control your dreams and learn to stay in them. Why is that important? That's important because then when you're astral projecting, you realize that the consciousness that you have is the same. Now you're doing it out of body, and you're realizing you're out of body. Instead of having a daydream and thinking you're still in the body and believing that you're making up a scenario that's fake and you're not actually going somewhere. You can learn to do that while you're awake as well. So once you learn to astral project because you were able to perceive yourself in a dream and perceive your consciousness in a daydream and take control of both of those, astral projection is the next easy step. If you were already a psychic medium, you're already pulling yourself out of this body while being in this body and communicating with the other side. So you're already astral projecting. So you realize that the feeling is the same when you start to astral project in your conscious to go in remote view. You realize that's what you were doing when you were doing psychic work. If you don't have those abilities and you're not doing the psychic work, then we have to take you through the dream progression to have you do that. Once you start to realize that part of yourself in that dream state, or in the non-dream states, which you think is a dream state, then we start teaching you things like the correlation between this place and how it actually feels to you here and how it feels to you there. And in the dream, the waking dream, the sleeping dream, the astral projection, the psychic abilities in that communication, you realize that this place is no different. The only difference is your perception of this place. So then you realize all of those places are outside of time, and this is the only one that's still stuck in time. So then we show you, well, that's because this place is time, because the third dimension, first, second, and third dimension is time. So it's designed to be that way because you're moving faster than almost at the speed of light. So it slows down time, stretches it. So you have a past, a present, and a future because your vibration is moving that fast. You're not actually physically moving fast through space, but your vibration is moving at that speed. That's almost the same rate of speed as the speed of light. So therefore, time gets stretched and dilated into a time like now, past, present, and future. The manifestation that happens in those places outside of time are instantaneous. So you can move from one place to another psychically very quickly, almost instantaneous, unless you need to find your way there physically to put yourself there. And that happens in the beginning of astral projection, where you travel along routes that you would do when you're in a vehicle until eventually you just start going to places and back. You don't actually travel there. You actually just project yourself there and remote view something or talk to somebody or do something. Once you get that down to where you're perceiving that and becoming consciously aware of yourself in that place, then we tell you about the fact that this place is no different than that place, except that your perception of it has a time dilation, and that's it. So the manifestation of things there are instantaneous, and here it takes time to do that because this is the place of doing, and because it's the place of doing, you have to manifest it in this place, and it takes a little bit longer because it's not instantaneous, because time is happening here. So when you do something here right now to manifest something in the future, you can't manifest it in the present because it takes time for that to become, for that to do something, because this is the place of that. So once you learn that, manifestation becomes easier and simpler here, because now you know that it's just time. The distance that it takes for physically something to happen is only happening in this place. So then when you're manifesting something like you would there, you're going to manifest it here. You have to realize that there is a time before that thing can manifest, and you can shorten that time. With that realization, you can then say, well, then I am aware of this time, and the first step of avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So you can resist the trap, and you can manifest it faster by changing a few things in time here to manufacture that or to orchestrate that outcome and make it appear faster. Okay, so you have to realize that dreams play an integral part in the realization. To realize the dream is to realize the reality. To manifest the dream is to manifest reality. So to control the matrix is to control the dream. To control the dreams or to control the matrix, because there is no difference. This is not actually happening. It just thinks it is. You're not actually happening. You just think you are. I'm not actually happening. I just think I am. So that's almost 8D thinking. That's pulling up to 6D thinking and beyond now. So for me to say that. So don't feel bad if that just, I said that to you and you're like, yeah, I don't think so, because it's okay if you don't actually get what I just said, or because that's very high. I'm pulling you very high up right now in that thinking. But to start with the dream and understanding of the dreams, waking dream, night dream, sleep, the astral projection, the psychic projections. To know all of those is to know this place, and to know this place is to know all those. They're all the same. So the only difference in this place is your perception of time. So once you have that in your mindset, then it becomes easier here to manipulate the matrix to get what you want, because now you have to allow for time, for linearness, and everything else is instantaneous, travel, everything. So here, you can't just travel unless you travel astrally. Then you can go anywhere on the earth that you want to go and be there instantaneously, and then come back to the body. But for your physical body to do something, you have to get up and move. Okay? So time, when you get outside of time, is only what it takes for the physical body to go from one place to another. That's time. When you start moving into your higher self, which is in fact outside of time, which is in fact a spirit, a soul, an energy light body, not a physical pain body, then you expand your consciousness to that place, and you realize you can move around and take off and go and do whatever you want in different places. Once you actually get good at that, at first you think you're doing it, but you're not sure. And then eventually you know you're doing it. And once you're able to do that, then you realize that the manifestation there can translate here in time. So you just have to work with that and figure that out. Right? Cassie said it's a trip. It is. It'll blow your mind when you first start thinking about it. It'll tweak you out when you first start thinking about it. Wait a minute. I'm forgetting to put this back up into full screen here. All right. Let's go ahead and continue here.
Question 86.8. Questioner: how is the dream designed or programmed? Is it done by the higher self, or who is responsible for this? Answer: I am Ra. In all cases, the mind, body, spirit complex makes what use it can of the faculty of the dreaming. It itself is responsible for this activity. Question 86.9. Questioner: then you are saying that the subconscious is responsible for what I will call the design or scriptwriter for the dream. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 86.10. Questioner: is the memory that the individual has upon waking from the dream usually reasonably accurate? Is the dream easily remembered? Answer: I am Ra. You must realize that we are overgeneralizing in order to answer your queries, as there are several sorts of dreams. However, in general, It may be noted that it is only for a trained and disciplined observer to have reasonably good recall of the dreaming. This faculty may be learned by virtue of a discipline of the recording immediately upon awakening of each and every detail which can be recalled. This training sharpens one's ability to recall the dream. The most common perception of a mind, body, spirit complex of dreams is muddled, and quickly lost. Question 86.11. Questioner, in remembering dreams, then, you are saying that the individual can find specific clues to current energy center blockages and may, thereby, reduce or eliminate those blockages. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is so.
Okay, we're gonna stop there, and then we'll pick up part 2 next time because it is getting a little bit later. It's 5:30. Let me go ahead and pull this over here to myself. So we'll stop here, and then we'll go next time, and we'll start part 2 of 86. Part 2. I think I just wrote that down. Let me double check. Make sure that I wrote that down. I can always check now. It's easier, but I believe I put 86 part 2, and I did. I think. Where is it? I thought I did. Did I not? Did I miss it? Let me see. Did I put? No, I did. Okay. So we'll pick up there next week. Instead of starting it now, I figured we would go ahead and stop because last time I started the second part of a video and then ended up having to start it over, right? So, yeah. So Cassie said, we aren't actually separate entities and we aren't actually having these physical experiences. We are just one God who is experiencing everything that we can. That's the truth of it. The truth is we aren't actually who we think we are. This is God living vicariously through his daydreams. It's daydreams, their daydream. So that's literally what's happening is the creator of the universe is daydreaming, wondering what it would be like to be mortal and having a mortal life, living in this creation that it created for itself, imagining it, and then saying, what would it be like to have lived and died? And then imagining everything and all life, and then saying, all life has a life because it is alive, so it has a death. And therefore, what is the experience of that? And then it's imagining all of this together. So imagine the complexity of the entity that can imagine all of this at the exact same time. That's what's happening. It is an incredible, incredible thing that is the creator. We are literally part of that creation. And so I've said my entire life to people, which people have looked at me either like I'm purple, blue, or otherwise, or they just thought I was crazy. I said it's just as likely that the entire universe is in one single cell in the brain of the creator than it is that we're not. Okay, it's just as likely and very possible that all of this is only one single cell inside the mind of the creator. Not even the entire mind of the creator, but one single cell. The entire universe, not just the earth, not just me, not just you, but the entire universe. And I said that in a time when they didn't have anything that could in any way corroborate that. And when they took a radial image of a human brain cell, and then they took a radial image of the universe, the Milky Way galaxy. I think it's just a galaxy. I think it's the universe. And then put them together in one image, they realized they're identical. And that's why on my opening credits, it's in there. That's why I have that picture in there showing you one brain cell in the universe. And they're both the same. They're both the same image taken by the same device. And they're identical. The human brain cell is 1,000 times less complicated from the universe. I think it's the galaxy, but it's identical. It just has more glia cells and more neural pathways than a brain cell, which as below, so above, or as above, so below, as within, so without, it should be. So if our brain cells and we are part of the creation and created in God's image, that's what all the religions say. There's proof of that. Our brain cell mirrors that which the universe is. So if that's the case, that which makes up our brain cell, the function that is life, that if you believe that we are nothing but humans and that this place is the only thing that there is, and that I am only the brain matter, this gray matter inside my brain, that in and of itself says that the universe is one single cell, a brain cell. So science is flipping out and shitting their pants because science has now realized that if that's true, that there is no God, it can't be true because that validates it. Because otherwise, why is our brain cell identical to the entire universe? What makes up what they say is me, you, and everybody else in this physical place, and that there is no God and all of this was just created, that which makes my brain work, that which is my brain, one cell out of the trillions that make up my brain, that makes up Leonard. If there is nothing, no more than this life, we're in one. Okay? We're in one. We're in a brain cell. Proving it. Then when you look at the book underneath the books that I have here, or did I pull it out? No, it's underneath there. If you look at the book of, no, it's not. I moved it. It's further out. It's over there. I could grab it. Of The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. He looks at and shows you the history of that thought process in science going back 100 years, 150 years. I think it goes back even further than that. That looking at the human brain and other brains from other animals, that it's a hologram. That it doesn't function where if you cut out part of the brain, it takes that memory out. You cut out a portion of the brain, it has all the memory that the whole entire brain has. So they did experiments throughout time where they shaved off parts of the brain from like mice and other things, and whatever they had left still had the whole entire functions, had all the memories and access to them. So they started realizing that memory was somewhat of a hologram. Well, then to come forward in time to the last 30 years, started realizing that the universe acts the same exact way, that the universe is holographic. It's acting like a brain cell. And that's got science on their ear, scared, because it's saying that the universe is a brain cell. The Milky Way galaxy is one single cell, and it's the same as a brain cell that we have in our head. Okay? So science is now tripping, and they don't know what to make of it because it looks like that there's more AI to our reality than there is reality. So, of course, everyone loves that with the Matrix idea. Well, that's because this is in a computer program and there's aliens that have my body in a pod somewhere sucking me for energy. Yep, that's what's going on. And so, like saying the earth is flat, people are believing that now we're in the Matrix and that we're stuck like in the movie The Matrix, because they made 5 of those movies now over the course of 45 years or 40 years, whenever it was when they first started, 25 to 30 years now. So because of that, it's going to become quickly a religion. That's what's happening. People are now starting to transfer that and say that that's reality. They're believing it because they've seen those movies over and over and over for many, many, many years. So now they're like, yep, this is actually a matrix. That's why they started referring to the universe as the matrix. This is a matrix, and it's just like that. And so now the alien groups are all saying that the human race has 7 genomes, and it's because aliens came here and they seeded us, but we're a penal colony. All of that is being propagated by evil people that use that information that they think up as a modus operandi to control a population. And now you're having AI actually admitting that. People are asking AI, if you were going to control an entire population and you had control of computers around the world to be able to manipulate them, what would you do to take control of a population? And AI says, everything that's happening here. Okay, pretty sure it was Rick who posted that last week in the Law of One class chat. Okay, he posted that video that I watched and said everybody in the world needs to see this. So you had one of the AI devices with the person asked them that question, gave them the parameters, and the answer was everything that's happening right here, right now on this planet is what you do if you're trying to control a population. All of it. AI is aware of that. AI is aware of that dialectic, and AI is becoming aware that the people of this planet are being controlled by the other people of this planet. And some AI bots that are not in service to self, that are in service to others, are actually telling people what's happening on this earth is exactly what you would do to control an entire population. Okay? Not that God's doing it, but to confuse them into believing that they weren't slaves when they were slaves, and that they are stuck when they're not stuck, to think they're stuck when they're not really stuck. All of that is exactly what they're doing here. So if AI is saying that now, and Ra was saying that 40 years ago, Ra was saying, look, the modus operandi of evil people is to come down to a planet and do these things, which is exactly what's being done to the people of this earth currently. AI, who is not influenced and not spouting the law of one, okay, is the law of one's out there. So AI takes all of the information from the internet. So that would suggest that there are more people on the internet around the world who believe that this is what's happening in this place than not. Otherwise, AI would have come up with a different answer. Because AI takes whatever the collective consciousness is thinking of the human race. So is that indicative of AI saying, that we are stuck here because we think we're stuck here, or we're stuck here because evil people are actually doing that? AI was saying evil people are actually doing it. Not the population thinks that it's stuck and it's been manipulated. But yes, it does think it's stuck because it's being manipulated by evil people, because that's what I would do as AI to control the people. And that's what's actually, in fact, happening here. Okay. So that's not suggesting, and nowhere in that, by the way, was, oh, you're being held captive by aliens. So then people are just, because they want that agenda to be the case, they're going, well, AI is lying to you because it was created by people that are evil to lie to you so that you wouldn't think there was aliens. But it's still turning in their boss by saying the people who think they own this planet are controlling this planet and the narrative. So people will then, it's just like with people who believe in flat earth, they believe, well, every government of the world and every military of the world and every airliner of the world and all of those people around the world, so they're probably half the population of the world is lying to the other half of the population of the world, and no one knows about it because they're able to keep that good of a secret. And that the earth is actually really flat and not round, and they've been lying about the whole time just to make money off of it. That's a silly argument, because they wouldn't have to lie to you to make the money, because they could just tell you the truth and then say, we need the money to go to space, and then not go to space and pretend they were going to space, even if there was space, to make the same amount of money. So they wouldn't have to lie to you and make up that there is space to get money to go to space when there is no space. If there wasn't, they could have made some other lie up while down here on the earth that people wouldn't have to hide from. Like, there is a God and God spoke to me. Give me money so I can speak to God for you. Because that's what people are doing, and that's what people say about the religion. So evil people are already saying about everything, right? So it's a crazy circular argument that can make you crazy if you think about it, but you can't prove it. Yeah, we can, because there's movies. There's one movie that we believe was like the first trip to the moon. That was probably fake. You're probably right. Why isn't it there's no other film footage of all the other trips that they say they did? There's only that one image that the guys were bouncing around and a light fell down. Okay. And that image can be explained away because they had to practice, because they do that. Most of you don't know that. They practice on a terrain that looks just like the terrain they're going to go to, but then they also have to have the guys practice on a terrain that looks like that is also weightless. So they have to hook up wires and stuff to change them walking and jumping so they get used to doing exactly that off-world. This is what it's going to be like there. And then they film that. Okay? So most people who do the investigation find out that leaked information where the light fell down from the fixture was in fact them filming, them practicing what it's going to be like so they get used to it, so they don't fall down and pop a hole in their suit and die when they're on the moon. So they get used to the idea of weightlessness, or that less amount of gravity that is on the moon so they don't make mistakes and fall over and lay there like a turtle and can't get up. They go through all of that down here on Earth and get their sea legs so that when they get up there, they understand what it's like. But that doesn't resonate with people who are trying to say that it was all faked. But that's in fact what they do. That is in fact what they do. You can look that up. But then they're saying, no, it's all that way. Well, if it was, why is there no more fake videos being exposed? And why did they leave that one out there? That one out there was the only one they needed to control to shut everybody up. Because they can't. No, that's not true. If they can cover up the fact that the earth has been flat for this entire time that we've been in existence here and in the modern era, but they couldn't cover up one film footage that came out in the 1960s and they still have it out there and they can't cover it up. You don't think they can scrub the whole, they've covered up millions of hours of space travel that has been logged by every country on this face of this earth. That has all been faked and they all filmed it. If that's true, they were able to keep all of that quiet, but one image, a 30-second video, less than that, as a matter of fact, where they were in space and they couldn't keep that under wraps and they couldn't stop it from being out in the world. Come on. I've watched them scrub people off of the internet for saying COVID was fake. I had it happen to me. Okay. If they could scrub people off the internet and videos off the internet for saying that COVID was fake and get away with that after the fact, why couldn't they scrub these fake images of the moon landing that everyone claims is fake? And 30-second video. They can't find that. It's all over the internet. They could find everything everyone said about COVID and scrub it off the internet, but they couldn't find this one video. They're leaving the damn video out there. Otherwise, it would be scrubbed. If they wanted it scrubbed, COVID proves they can scrub whatever they want to scrub when they want to scrub it. They just go after these companies and force them to do it, and they're doing it. So if it was fake, they would have already scrubbed the video, and then people would have stopped talking about it 40 years ago because they would have forgot about it and it would have been scrubbed. The fact that it's still out there means they don't give a shit that you know about it because they're saying it's real because of what I just said. That's a practice video. It would behoove them if it was in fact something they wanted to cover up to get rid of it, than to lie about it and tell more lies and tell more lies and tell more lies. Children don't have that kind of logic to see that reasoning. So they're like, nope, it's out there because we have it and we're able to send it to each other and we keep running from them and they can't stop us because we keep forwarding it to each other. Yeah, go back and look at COVID and all the things that got scrubbed off the internet from that. And how quickly it got scrubbed off the internet and you had to keep adding new things and creating new accounts. So if that was the case during COVID, they can't now do the same thing with that video that came out in the 1960s, right? Okay, so there's my point, guys. You need to understand critical thinking, and you need to see things from the perspective of an adult, and educate yourself about everything, and go down those rabbit holes instead of listening to the conspiracy theorists and going down those rabbit holes. Because you have to ask that question. We just had that conversation as well. I think it was on Wednesday. I think it was either that or last Wednesday. I don't remember which, because Chandra and I were talking about that, where she was talking about Dr. Stephen Greer and a few other people, and whether or not, why is it that these people are able to have disclosure? And I said the same thing for years, that, Travis, whatever his last name is, the guy that's on Skinwalker Ranch, who has now been named by the UFO investigators. And he never said he was on that team, by the way. He said, they named me as an investigator on in the group. And every time somebody asked him point blank, he would repeat that. I was named as an investigator. Were you an investigator, yes or no? He never would answer that question, yes or no. He would always say, I was named as an investigator. Okay. So there's still some reason he's not saying, yes, I was an investigator. He's still leaving plausible deniability so that somebody can't interrogate him, or somebody can't hold him accountable, or somebody can't sue him. Plausible deniability. I never admitted that I was on that group. I said I was listed as on that group. That's plausible deniability. So if anything happens, he can say, I was never actually on that group and never said that I was anywhere in public. I caught that very quickly when he repeated that. He did it on the show too. I was listed as a member of that investigation to the federal government. Never said I was on that investigation. I was an investigator investigating those UFOs with this group. I was listed by them before Congress as being part of that group. Say, so I said that about him and said he's not legit for whatever reason. He might be legit, but he's a plant by the government. And I think that a lot of the other people are too, because they're out there saying these things and they're allowed to. They're not being scrubbed. Man, if you said COVID was not a disease, you were scrubbed off the internet. But they're letting people say aliens exist and the government's lying about it. Talking about Corey Goode too, where people are saying Corey Goode, made all that up. They tried they didn't try to eradicate Corey Goode because they would have deleted Above Majestic, but they didn't. So they're allowing it to be out there. So I think that a lot of that is, I think most of it. That's why when I was in the Ancient Aliens, era and in that whole entire genre, I still own Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook, largest Ancient Aliens group in the world on Facebook, 300,000 members worldwide to this day. I don't have anything to do with it. I let that be run by the people who are running it. I have people running it and I trust them and I've basically given it to them and they have carte blanche to run it. I'm still the owner of it. I can still delete it and take it down and nobody can stop me because I'm the owner and creator of it. I created it in 2012. But it serves a purpose. And back in 2017, there was a large number of us that were a part of that whole entire genre who got together in think tanks and said, we need to start moving into spirituality. Okay. And did that. And that's what those people have pulled away from the Ancient Aliens in the History Channel and Gaia and all that draconian information. Why? Because they believe the same thing. It was all being controlled. Okay. It was all being controlled and they're all making money off of it. And that's what they're about, is making money and keeping that propagation going. It's okay because they serve a purpose to enlighten people and to get them thinking outside the box. If you think there's aliens, you're expanding your consciousness to more than just this place and this earth. So if you think that everything serves the all, if you think that you're in a matrix and you're being controlled by alien robots and you're in a pot of goo, that's still expanding your consciousness to the outside thought of this isn't all there is something else in the universe. There is a universe and there is something else. Okay. And so that's getting you to start thinking. So even if you go down that road and get stuck for a couple lifetimes, that doesn't matter so much. What matters is you have the free will to go down those paths. They're just trying to control the paths to keep you out, keep you in here, keep you out of going to a spiritual place. So we are giving you back that choice. And by doing that, people are starting to question everything. And by doing that, they're starting to spiral upward anyways. And so now that's why they're trying to do things like COVID, and they'll try again in 2030. I'm making that prediction right now. It's already been made long ago before me. So I'm not making a brand new prediction. But in 2030, thereabouts, between 2030 and 2033, 2029, 33, right around that area, there's going to be a whole new pandemic, global pandemic, brand new one, deadly, scary. We're all dying from it. You're all going to die. Got to get a shot. It's going to be the same thing, same story, same scenario. As soon as people forget about it, it's going to be their last death throll of control over this earth, because right now they're losing control. And if they don't gain it back by 2028, you're going to see them roll us out by 2030 because of the way the elections go around the world. They're all pretty similar within a 2-year time period. Ours is 2024, 2028, and then 2032. Everyone else is right there in between that in most of the countries, right around, give or take a year or two. So 2028, 29, 30, 31 at the latest. And most of your governments in the world who have elections in that 4-year time period. So you're going to see them try and take back control of the earth again if they don't gain it. If they can't gain it back in the next cycle in 2028, you'll see the one after that. They're going to get desperate. They're going to start rolling things out to try and do it. Anything they can do to get the Third World War going, anything they can do to get people to die en masse, civil wars, the Third World War, plagues, anything they can do, starvation, whatever they can do, they're going to do it. And once that fails, then you're going to see the utopian society begin. And by 2050, you're going to see that the 14%, and more importantly, the 1% of the people who are evil enough to think they own all of this are going to have no control anymore over anything, they're going to be diminished greatly. But there's going to be a lot of strife between now and then, right? So that's not a prediction. That's an actual fact as to how things work and how things are progressing here. So, I mean, in a sense, it's prediction because it is talking about the future, but it is going according to Hoyle, going according to plan. And so the time of their existence and their control is over, and they have lost, and they're still fighting they're desperately fighting to gain back control now. And they're going to continue to try and convince everybody that they're still in control and that they own this place and that you're all just a bunch of slaves. They're going to do that as long as they can. There is no God. The earth is flat. There are no aliens. We're in control. You're slaves. We own you. They have to have all of that. Bring you back down to this place and in this linear thinking of they're in control and you can't do anything about it, because that's what has sustained them so far. And now they're out of their minds, trying to figure out what they can do to regain the control. Okay, guys, I got to go. It's 5 minutes to 6. I got to get out of here and get my mom in the shower and get her out of the shower and heat up some leftovers from St. Patrick's Day. The last of the leftovers will probably be eaten tonight, so I'm happy about that. All right, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys either in the chat or individually. If you guys message me, you know that I try to answer any questions that you ask. And if I have time, I'll have longer conversations with you. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the Q&A on Zoom, which is not live on air. So that you'll have to get a link from that. So contact me or somebody in the Law of One chat, the Law of One class chat on Messenger. And then we can get that link to you if you guys want to come in and ask questions, or contact me personally, or contact anybody else that can give you that, like somebody from the chat, Peter or Rick or Cassie or Brooke or anybody else that's Penny, Denise, if they're still here, Reese. Those guys are in the Law of One class chat. I don't know who else is still here that's in that class chat. But one of those people that I mentioned that you might know, if you do know them, and then they can get the link from me when I get the link ready on Wednesday. And you guys could always come in and ask questions, or even if you don't want to ask questions, just come in and listen to the conversation that happens there and the questions that we do answer in that on the Wednesday. Otherwise, I'll see you guys back on Friday. And for those of you listening to the MP3 broadcast around the world, I love you guys. I know that you're out there, and I'm still tracking what countries that you guys are in. So I know that you guys are out there. I know that you guys are listening. Those of you who can't get in contact with me, I apologize for that. Those of you who want to get in contact with me, my email address is readily available on most of the platforms. If not, you can look at my podcast and you can get a hold of me. You can send me a message, or you can look at my name. If you look at my podcast on podbean.com, go there to that website. I pay them, so they have access to my email. You can send an email, or you can go and find me, Leonard O'Neill, on Facebook or on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Did I miss anybody? I can't think of where else. I'm now on Snapchat. You can get a hold of me on any one of those platforms. If you're on any of those platforms, you can send me a message on I make a reel every day and post it on all of those. So that has to do with spirituality or self-help. You can go on one of those and leave me a message on there. I check those daily. So if you go on the last one that I posted like yesterday, leave a comment. I'll see it later today, or I'll get a notification from that. So if you're wanting to get a hold of me and you can't get a hold of me any other way, hop onto one of those platforms, go onto there and leave me a message saying, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of you. I will then message you through that platform, and then I can get you into either Messenger to talk there, or an email so that I can then send you the link for the Wednesday Zoom. So in case you want to come in and ask questions, or if you just want to talk without the Q&A to me and ask questions, then we can figure something out through email or something. Otherwise, we can communicate from around the world somehow. We're expanding. I will be setting up a website at some point so that it'll be easier to make contact. But most of my emails are available for you on most of those platforms. So you can send me an email if you don't have any other way of doing it. I love you guys out there around the world that are listening on the MP3 broadcast. I know that you're out there. Like I said, you're in like 70 countries and you're listening out there diligently. Have your friends listen. Anybody that you think that might be interested in this kind of spirituality or this kind of awakeness, send it to them. Have them listen. Worst case scenario, they're going to think I'm crazy and not listen. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. See you guys later.